boy was beaten his entire life. He stood on top of a bridge. Taijin had no powers. He was weak. And now, he was also disabled. Some police officers tried to stop him, but Taijin kicked at them, shouting that nothing would ever change. In fact, just 3 hours earlier, he had been expelled from the guild because he broke his leg. The guild master said that even after 7 years, he was still a failure. When Taijin tried to explain himself, the guards were already at the door. One of the awakened arrived and ordered him to leave. Taijin grabbed him by the collar, shouting that he lost his leg because of them. The man laughed and called him trash. Taijin tried to throw a punch, but took a heavy blow to the stomach instead. After that, he was beaten down. People laughed as they threw money on the ground, telling him to never come back. That's how Taijin ended up drunk, standing on top of a bridge. As he climbed higher, the system warned him, "Danger!" Taijin laughed, saying it was useless. In his entire life, he had never been strong. So he began pounding on the system screen until it turned red and declared it was on strike. Taijin thought it was a joke. That thing had never done anything for him. He smashed a bottle against the screen because this had to be a sick joke. He had lived a nightmare for 7 long years. That's when the police arrived, ordering him to come down. But after all the shouting, Taijin slipped and fell straight off the bridge into the river. In the middle of the fall, the system appeared and teleported him to the administration server. The police couldn't understand how the boy simply vanished. Taijin found himself in a place surrounded by system screens. They all displayed the same message: skill awakened, explosive growth, a skill that would allow him to evolve faster than anyone else. And then, he began to suffer through the system update. A young man is sitting on a park bench complaining about a headache. Then he wonders why he was drinking alone last night and swears he'll never drink again. But he remembers falling and the status window doing something strange before it started updating. He quickly dismisses it all as a dream, amused by the idea of being teleported and having his status window updated. Now the young man laments being unemployed and needs to find a way to make money. As he considers working construction, a girl greets him and asks what he thought of the new version of the status window. Startled, he backs away and asks who she is. She introduces herself as Addie Min from the Status Window Administration Department. The young man rubs his eyes, doubting that something like a status window administrator could actually exist. Then he realizes none of it was a dream. Addie confirms it was real and says she investigated the explosive growth skill he requested last night. And it turns out the skill didn't work correctly because his status window was an old version. He glares at her and asks if that was the only reason. She explains that for security reasons, she can't go into further detail. The skill should work perfectly now, and he wonders if it was all for nothing. He questions if all his hard work was useless in the end. Taijin says she made him crawl for 7 years, and now she's saying the skill didn't work because of an old version. He grabs her and yells that he should crack her head open, asking how she's going to compensate him for the hell he's been through. Then she tells him to calm down, explaining she returned all the status points that were never applied and healed his injuries. Taijin looks at himself and asks if she really did that. He notices his leg is healed and asks how she managed to do it. Addie replies that she can't tell him right now, but that to activate explosive growth, a special trigger is needed. She then offers to give him a suggestion. Suddenly, a rift opens up over the city. A monster emerges from the portal as people scream for the extermination squad. Taijin asks if he needs to kill those monsters. He turns to her and says he can't fight those things, but Addie insists he's more than capable of defeating them. She asks him to trust her, saying the worst that can happen is death and he'll be fine. He looks at her for a moment. Ahead, one of the monsters releases poisonous spores. Only B-class or higher hunters would be strong enough to face them, and only the best extermination squads could kill them. He then asks if defeating those things will activate explosive growth, and she confirms that it will certainly be effective. He hesitates, finding it ridiculous that she appeared out of nowhere and is now telling him to defeat these monsters. So he wonders if he can really trust her. He ponders for a moment. Then he remembers how his life has been one hellish experience after another. He knows that even if he runs away, nothing will change for him, so he questions why he's hesitating. Realizing he's at rock bottom anyway, he takes a step forward. Then he decides he might as well just risk it. He runs toward the danger as one of the soldiers yells for him to stop. The soldier warns him that it's dangerous, but he leaps into the air towards the monster. One of the smaller creatures lunges to attack him. He gets hit by a liquid but yells that he's had enough. With a powerful kick, he destroys the creature in front of him. 3 notifications pop up, informing him of the mission's completion and the activation of immunity and explosive growth. Taijin is surprised he killed a junior spore with a single kick and wonders what those messages are. A new window informs him that his attributes have increased significantly. His status window is displayed, showing his new D-class hunter stats and skills. Addie asks what he thinks and if explosive growth isn't an incredible skill. He covers his mouth and states that this is way too OP, but she warns him it's too early to celebrate, as the skill's true power is just beginning. She encourages him to crush all the remaining monsters, so Taijin charges towards 2 more creatures. He readies himself to attack. With one punch, he defeats another junior spore. He realizes he's gaining a lot of status points with each kill and says he's loving this skill. Then he continues to destroy the remaining monsters one after another. He leaps toward the larger monster. Taijin claims that at this rate, he'll become a B-class hunter in a week, and he states he'll be stronger than an A-class in no time. Moments later, the street is clear of monsters. A man arrives on the scene and wonders if E-Squad has already handled the situation. A blonde guy complains to his companions that they came all this way for nothing. Then he spots Taijin in the distance and asks if it's him, but his colleague doubts it. Taijin holds a large crystal while laughing, and the other hunter wonders why he's acting that way. The group approaches him, and the leader calls him a loser, saying he doesn't belong here. He continues, asking if Taijin is having a hard time accepting being fired, and calls him useless as a hunter. Taijin recognizes him as Yongjin, and wonders if they also came to fight the monsters. He then looks down for a moment. Then, he cracks a smile. As Yongjin says he should have just stayed home, one of the soldiers approaches to thank Taijin. The soldier explains that if it weren't for him, things could have ended very badly for everyone. He realizes this is a great opportunity. Taijin replies that it was nothing, and he was just doing his job as a responsible hunter. Yongjin and his companion watch him, and one of them remarks that he's a terrible actor. The soldier praises him, saying she didn't expect him to defeat the entire group of poisonous spores, and he asks what she said. Yongjin wonders if that loser really killed them all by himself. Then the soldier confirms the feat and asks if there's a problem. He and his group can't believe it, and Yongjin insists it must be a lie. Taijin walks over, telling them not to bother the squad and that he'll explain everything on the way. He leads them to a nearby abandoned building. Once inside, Yongjin demands an explanation and asks if he really defeated all the monsters alone. He doubts that a D-class loser like Taijin would be capable of such a feat. Yongjin presses for an answer, but Taijin remains silent. A system notification appears for him. The window reveals a new mission to teach those disrespectful newbies a lesson, and the reward for completing it is an A-class skill. He realizes he can beat these guys up and get a new skill, so he kneels on the floor and says he'd first like to apologize to all of them. He apologizes, but then asks if they can let him give them a beating right now. Yongjin and his group stare at him, and he simply asks what's wrong. Taijin then says he's a straightforward person and can't beat around the bush. He bows and begs for all of them to allow him to teach them a lesson. One of the men walks up and asks what his problem is, and if he's gone completely insane. He demands that Taijin stop talking nonsense and give them a proper answer. Then the man hits him on the head and calls him a filthy mule. While holding his head, Taijin states that it's an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The attacker notices he doesn't move and says he's going to dish out some punishment, but Taijin glares at him and tells him to enjoy it. Suddenly, the man is struck in the face. Taijin stands up as the other man falls to the floor, wondering what happened. The other hunters question why their colleague fell on his own. Taijin gestures with his fingers for them to come at him, one at a time, and he says he's going to give each of them a flick on the head for bullying their senior. One of the attackers says Taijin must be crazy, but that they'll knock some sense into him. Then he uses a secret technique on one of the men. He quickly takes down the rest of the group with the same move. Yongjin asks if they're kidding him, saying it was just a flick on the head. Taijin stands among the fallen bodies, while the other guy insists it has to be a joke. Then he glares at Yongjin Lee and asks if he thinks this is a game. He states that he can forgive the others, but he will never forgive him. Taijin cracks his knuckles and asks if he's ready for a real beating. Yongjin calls him a bastard. He says Taijin seems to have awakened a power skill, but he shouldn't get so confident, and he claims that Taijin is the one who's going down. Taijin stares at him and asks when he learned such a cool move. A system window announces the mission is complete, and a new skill has been acquired, so he says he's learned a new skill too. A large sphere forms in front of him, and he asks Yongjin to help him test it out. The information window describes the new A-class skill, Fireball. Taijin asks what he thinks of his fireball, but admits that since he just learned it, he doesn't know if he can control its power. So he warns Yongjin to be careful. He says it might burn a little as he launches the attack. Yongjin just comments on how hot it is. A huge explosion engulfs the area. After the smoke clears, Yongjin is sitting on the ground, wondering what the hell happened. He touches his own hair and questions if he's still alive. Taijin walks over and asks if he forgot to go to the bathroom, remarking that it looks like someone needs new pants. He hopes that was a good lesson and advises him not to bully the guild members anymore. Yongjin apologizes and swears he'll never bother anyone again, but Taijin cuts him off to ask a question. He reminds him that he still owes him a flick. Addie Min introduces herself and decides to give a quick recap of the story so far. She explains that, thanks to a status window update, Taijin finally got his revenge. And he took revenge on the bullies who tormented him, but he used too much power and passed out right after. Addie complains that he's been in bed for 3 days, but Taijin tells her to shut up. He says he feels like he's dying and the least she could do is be quiet. Seeing him awake, she's surprised, and he realizes this is the result of completely depleting his mana. He admits he got too overconfident and decides to focus on increasing his mana for now. Addie questions the need for this, since he has the explosive growth skill. He explains that it's precisely because of this skill that he needs to increase his mana, and she asks why. Explosive growth greatly increases his other stats in relation to his mana, and he'll probably pass out again if he goes monster hunting in this state. Also, Fireball uses way more mana than normal, so she asks if there's a way to increase only his mana. Then he tells her not to worry, because he knows a place. He takes her to a huge building called the Tower of Trials. Addie asks what that tower is, and he explains it's the best place to increase mana quickly. Addie looks around and asks why the place is so deserted since he said it was popular. He also finds it strange, as the place was bustling a few years ago, and wonders if it went bankrupt. Suddenly, an old man appears behind them and calls out to them. He continues speaking, saying that the person has finally returned. Taejin and Addie are confused, and he comments that the old man looks like he could die at any moment. He approaches and says he'd like to do a quest from the Tower of Trials, but the man misunderstands. The old man says he's not a fan of those movies, so Taejin corrects him, repeating that he wants a quest. The man finally understands and recognizes him as an adventurer who has come for a challenge. He asks them to follow him, as he will guide them through the tower. Addie confesses she's a bit apprehensive, but he reassures her, saying he came prepared. The guide leads them to a platform and begins giving instructions about the tower. He explains that the tower has 10 stages, and the mission ends upon completing them. Taejin then interrupts him and asks if the first stage is a fight against 10 goblins. The old man remembers and confirms that he's right. Addie praises him for knowing so much, and he boasts that he knows the tower's strategy better than anyone. He explains that although he could never participate in raids, he watched videos and studied every detail of the dungeons, so he confidently declares that a beginner's dungeon like this will be a piece of cake. The old man asks what that was, but Taejin just says he was talking to himself. They are transported to a clearing, and the guide announces that the first test will begin immediately. The old man raises his staff and begins the summoning. With effort, he finishes calling the demonic beasts. Taejin prepares to fight while Addie encourages him, saying that 10 goblins are nothing for him. Something then moves in the bushes ahead, but it's not goblins that emerge, but large, muscular creatures. An entire army of monsters now reveals itself before them. Taejin wonders if it's their growing season. He then turns to the guide and asks about the monsters, which look more like ogres than goblins. The old man seems to be asleep and mutters that he wants lobsters too. Taejin realizes the old man is completely senile. The creatures roar and advance towards them. Addie asks what they should do, as the monsters are coming. He replies that he's already noticed. Taejin states that it doesn't matter if they're ogres, because he's going to destroy them all. Taejin launches a fireball towards the ogres. The fireball consumes the ogres in front of him. He asks what they thought of that, but Addie warns him that there's still one left. Then an even larger ogre emerges behind him, ready to attack. The monster strikes him with a club. He slides back and admits that ogres are still ogres. Then he jumps onto a nearby wall and challenges it. Taejin pushes off the wall and hits the monster. He spins in the air and finishes the attack with a kick to the ogre's head. The monster finally falls, and notifications for stage completion and experience gain appear. The guide congratulates him for completing the first stage in the blink of an eye. The guide assumes it was a bit easy because it was the first stage, but Taejin replies that it was much harder than he thought. The old man ignores him and says to proceed to the next stage. The remaining stages were unexpected, with stronger and more numerous monsters, making the journey exhausting. He now understands why no one comes to this place anymore. He realizes that, for a beginner or not, it's impossible to complete this tower. From inside the tower, he screams for help. Exhausted, he finally reaches the last stage of the Tower of Trials. Then the final boss, a 3-headed dog, appears before him. He wonders what that abomination is doing here. The final boss was supposed to be a 3-headed puppy, but this wasn't right. He gives up on the reward, saying there's no way to beat this creature, and he's also out of mana, with no way to fight. Suddenly, a hidden quest window appears. The quest asks him to help the senile NPC return to normal to restore the dungeon. He realizes the dungeon is created according to the old man's mana, but in his current state, he can't control his own mana and ends up summoning stronger monsters. If he can bring him back to normal, he can complete the dungeon. Addie asks if he's thought of something, and he confirms, but isn't sure if it will work. He then runs towards the old man, saying he has to try. Taejin remembers hearing that mages with a lot of mana lose control, and now he can see it. He can see the jumbled mana inside the old man's head, so he positions himself behind the guide. Addy asks what he's about to do. He uses a secret technique of his own style. The old man says that this is truly heaven on earth. Taijin is glad he liked it and continues the massage. He explains that while it looks like a normal massage, he's making the scattered mana flow again. He concentrates so as not to miss any points, as he needs to restore the mana flow. But while he's busy, the three-headed monster approaches, and Addy warns him to be careful. The monster launches an attack in their direction. Taijin struggles to finish the massage in time. A huge explosion hits the top of the tower. The guide apologizes for the inconvenience he caused. He then reveals himself in a muscular form and thanks the young man for all his hard work. Taijin stares at him and asks who he is. The man says it's been a long time since he's felt so alive. With a single blow of his staff, he attacks the monster. The three-headed creature is defeated upon receiving the attack. The guide thanks the young man for saving him and offers to grant him a wish. The system notifications confirm the quest completion and reward delivery. While Taijin and Addy watch, the guide does squats with his staff. The man continues his exercise. He completes 100 reps and lifts the staff. He throws it to the ground and explains that strength training increases the ability to handle intense mana. His muscles twitch. Then he shows off, saying that's why he was able to become an Archmage. He asks if Taijin can feel the incredible mana radiating from his muscle fibers. He offers to let the young man feel his muscles, but Taijin politely refuses. The Archmage then asks the young man what he seeks, saying he can ask for anything. Taijin explains that he doesn't have enough mana and was hoping he could increase it for him. The man says it's a simple wish and prepares to use a close combat magic technique. He then hits Taijin with a mana strike. A notification informs him that Taijin's maximum mana has increased by 300 and his meter is now full. He recovers from the blow, saying he thought he was going to die, but the guide observes him and says his problem doesn't seem to be a lack of mana. Taijin asks what he's talking about. The Archmage explains that his problem is the fireball skill, which consumes a lot of mana. He continues, saying that fireball is one of the most basic skills, but his is several times more destructive. But all he's doing is spending way more mana on it. Then Elkaroid tells him not to fear, for the great Elkaroid will give new life to his fireball. Elsewhere in the city, they meet in front of a tall building. A girl named Siana Lee greets him from a distance. Taijin explains to Addy that she's a friend from the Hunter's Den, 3 years younger than him. Addy teases him for having a friend, and he threatens her, saying he'll punch her one day. She then asks why he wanted to see her, and he replies that it's to test the new fireball he got from the muscular old man. Siana's guild is called Mythos, and they have the largest training facility in the country. He remembers that the previous fireball set an entire building on fire, and wonders how much more powerful this one will be. That's why he needs to test it in a safe place. Addy comments that he really knows cool people. Siana asks if he said something, but Taijin quickly denies it. In the elevator, she asks what he's been up to, and Taijin replies, just the usual hunter work. She stares at him for a moment, and he asks if there's something on his face. Siana simply comments that he seems a little different than before. She explains that he always needed her help, but now that no longer seems to be the case, leaving him at a loss for word. Then she mentions that, coincidentally, someone else wanted to use the facility too, and he asks who it is. She tells him to prepare for a surprise and opens the training room door. Seeing who's inside, he's shocked. A hunter named Jinyuk Choi from the Skybreaker Guild is mounted on a large beast. The two stare at each other and exchange their names in a serious tone. Sayana notices the strange mood and asks why they're acting like this after a year. She explains that the facility is a virtual space materialized by the user's mana. It's also possible to create monsters to train with, depending on how the mana is gathered and focused. Then she creates what she calls a cute little monster, but he doubts her definition. Siana asks if he understands how to use the place. Siana says she's going to get some drinks and tells them to have fun. The two guys and Addy are silent for a moment. Taijin then decides to create a monster of his choice with his own mana. He manages to summon an ogre, to his own surprise. Then he cracks his knuckles and prepares for combat. He attacks the creature with a flurry of rapid punches. With one final blow, he completely destroys the monster. Taijin stretches and says that was just a warm-up, while Jinhyuk watches him. Jinhyuk then asks if it was really him, but the other doesn't understand. He accuses him of attacking the junior members of their guild. Taijin stares at him in silence. Jinhyuk approaches, saying that although he doubted it at first, seeing him now confirms his suspicions. He assumes Taijin has awakened a new skill, and he questions him for using his new power to assault those who were once his family. Taejin remembers that Jin-hyuk was one of the few friends he could trust since their days at the Hunter's Den. He remembers how the three of them were friends at the Hunter's Den, but when they joined Skybreaker together, he stagnated while Jin-hyuk quickly rose to the top. Then his friend changed, and he became just another D-class hunter. Taejin confirms that's exactly what he did and asks what he's going to do about it. Jin-hyuk is startled and asks if he's upset because he beat up a few idiots, but he retorts that they were the ones who bullied him first. He then questions what the family was doing while he was getting beaten up daily. Jin-hyuk grabs him by the shirt and challenges him. Taejin says he can't breathe and that because he feels threatened. This justifies self-defense. Seona arrives with the drinks and asks what's going on. She finds the two of them facing off. Then they start fighting each other. Jin-hyuk lunges forward with his spear. Taejun asks for a timeout, but the other says there's no chance. He is then hit in the face by the butt of the weapon. Jin-hyuk comments that he's gotten so strong he barely recognizes him. He says Taejin gave him no choice but to go all out, but the other one taunts him, saying he should have done that from the start. Jin-hyuk gets angry and asks since when he became so cocky. He begins to use the first form of the Skybreaker spear style. The technique is called Storm Spear. Seon-ah screams for him to stop, asking if he's gone mad. Taejin says he knew he would use that technique. Then he decides to start trying too. Seona and Addy look at him. He prepares a sphere in his hands. Then he casts the Archmage's Fireball, an S-class skill. Jin-hyuk says that's just a blast of energy. Taejin unleashes the Archmage's Fireball, a powerful S-class skill that reduces enemy healing. Jin-hyuk wonders what kind of magic is approaching him. He then realizes there's no way to block the attack. Suddenly, a figure leaps in front of him and intercepts the blow. The person unsheathes their sword. With a single slash, the figure completely dissipates the fireball. The three stare at the scene. A man with silver hair and white clothes now stands before them. Taejin recognizes him as Vice Master Cha, an S-class hunter from the Mythos Guild. Suyeon Cha says that using a lethal blow against another hunter can have terrible consequences. Taejin explains it was his first time using the skill, and he couldn't control its power. Jin-hyuk sees the situation as favorable, and declares that Taejin is on his blacklist. Vice Master Cha stares at him for a moment, but then he shakes Taejin's hand and invites him to join their guild. Jin-hyuk reacts with disbelief at the offer. Taejin stares at the man, who is the de facto master of Mythos and one of the few S-class hunters in the country. And such an important hunter is personally recruiting Taejun for his guild. Suyeon Cha says he has never seen such a powerful fireball and that a dedicated hunter like him would be a great asset to the guild. Then he asks again if Taejun would like to join them. Taejun didn't expect to be recruited by Mythos right there. Seona says that he has finally recognized Taejun's true worth. Mythos is one of the 4 great guilds in Korea, along with Harmony, Hwarang, and Blue Lotus. He knows that joining them can only be beneficial for him, but he says a wise man once told him that a true hunter must endure arduous training to surpass his limit. Then he points to Jin-hyuk and says his friend promised to fight him to help him overcome his limits. Jin-hyuk denies ever making such a promise. Taejun continues, saying that through the intense battle with Jin-hyuk, he realized something. And he realized his friend is an insurmountable mountain that he cannot yet conquer, but he hopes to one day through hard work. Therefore, he refuses the invitation, as he has an obstacle he must first overcome. Jin-hyuk questions what he's talking about and tries to explain the real reason for their battle. Suyeon Cha agrees that training is crucial, and says he's impressed. Then he asks for his name and class, and the young man introduces himself as Taejun Lee, a D-class hunter. The Vice Master states that a talent like him doesn't belong in D-class and offers to do him a favor. Later that day, Taejin receives a letter of recommendation from Vice Master Cha. He invited him to take the B-class hunter exam in a month, and his friends congratulate him. Taejin remembers hesitating at first because of his anger, but a higher class meant tougher dungeons, so it wasn't a bad deal for him. A month later, he heads to the exam center. Arriving at the location, he comments that even the air feels different from what he's used to. Addy is surprised he managed to get a letter of recommendation, but Taejin says the man has a good eye for potential. She then asks why he didn't join the Mythos Guild since he clearly has their support. He simply replies that the reason is money. A hunter affiliated with a guild has a large portion of their rewards confiscated, and their salary and schedules are controlled. He remembers being exploited and then discarded when he injured his leg. Taejin declares there's no chance he'll join a guild as he wants more money. A voice calls him from behind. A girl named Saren Yu, a C-class hunter from the Blue Lotus Guild, introduces herself. Taejin asks how she knows him, and Saren explains that he's quite famous. She tells him that the Vice Master of Mythos couldn't stop praising him. He gets embarrassed and thinks the man is nosy. Another young man approaches, saying he's heard rumors about him, but that he looks rather mediocre. He introduces himself as Gaeon Kang, a C-class hunter from the Hwarang Guild. Gaon Kang declares himself the man who will become the greatest of this generation. Taijin stares at him for a moment and finds him to be a strange fellow. A voice on the microphone thanks the hunters for waiting and announces the start of the 32nd B-class hunter exam. The announcer then introduces the exam supervisor, and she announces that it will be the A-class hunter, Jin-yuk Choi from Skybreaker. Taejun is shocked to see Jin-yuk there. Jin-yuk greets them and says that before they begin, he will explain how the exam will proceed. Jin-yuk explains that the exam will be in a prepared dungeon, where the 8 participants will form 4 pairs. There are 4 entry points, A, B, C, and D, which lead to a meeting point before the final boss. The first 2 teams to reach the meeting point will proceed to the boss room with him for the final battle, and he assures them that even if they give up, there is security personnel to ensure everyone's safety. He also informs them that broadcasting points have been included in this exam. With the start of the exam, he asks everyone to pick up the broadcasting devices as their name is called. Group A is formed by Saren Yu and Gion Kang. Dongjun Yang and Aram Hong are announced as Group B. Next, Song Yi-jo and Junyong Bong form Group C. And finally, Taijin Lee and Junyun Kim are announced as Group D. Taijin's partner, Junyun Kim from the Skybreaker Guild, greets him and hopes they get along. Taijin tries to cheer him on so they can go, but Jin-hyuk watches them closely. Junhyun glances at Taijin sideways. Jin-hyuk is enraged by Taijin's audacity to use him to his advantage. He promises it won't be easy, and Junhyun quietly agrees. As the two enter the gate, Jin-hyuk vows to make him regret taking this exam. The interior of the dungeon reveals a dangerous and hostile place. At the Skybreaker Guild headquarters, Taejin Lee questions the request for him to take the B-rank exam. Elsewhere, a man asks the reason for a task, and Jin-hyuk Choi questions if he was paying attention. Jin-hyuk explains that all he needs to do is participate in the exam and get in Taejun Lee's way. He mentions that Route D was designed to be more difficult, so he just needs to create trouble for Taejin along the way. And then he comments that he heard the man's mother has fallen ill recently. He suggests the man be a good boy and get the money for her surgery. Jin-hyuk guarantees a more than sufficient payment if everything goes well and asks the man to just trust him. Back on Route D, the man accompanies Taejin, but they soon encounter monsters. One of the creatures lunges to attack. With his bare hands, Taejin destroys the monster instantly. He comments on the creature's weakness and the little experience gained as his skill activates. His companion realizes he was never warned about such strength. He is baffled by Taejin's power, who didn't seem this strong just a few weeks ago. He recalls that they were always at the bottom at Skybreaker, but Taejin never lost hope. At another time, Taejin even praised his companion's incredible ability to absorb enemy attacks. Taejin encouraged him, saying that one day his true potential would be revealed, and he remembers how Taejin cheered him up and gave him hope when he was disheartened. Then he questions how he could possibly sabotage him, feeling like trash for it. But remembering his mother's surgery, Junyun Kim decides he must do this for her. Back in the present, he calls out to Taejin. He offers a drink, saying his friend must be very tired. Junyun explains it's a booster potion he always uses and insists that Taejin accept it. So Taejin thanks him and opens the bottle. He drinks the liquid, and Junyun thinks the paralyzing solution has been ingested. Taejin exclaims that the drink is very good, while his companion believes he'll be exhausted in no time. Suddenly, Taejin begins to feel a strong discomfort. He clutches his stomach and says it feels like the devil is about to come out of him. Urgently, he asks Junyun if there's a bathroom nearby. Junyun replies that there isn't, and Taejin regrets not going earlier, concluding they need to finish the dungeon quickly. Confused, he wonders why the poison isn't working as it should. Taejin complains about the lack of bathrooms in the dungeon, and his immunity skill activates. Junyun Kim wonders if his companion has some kind of poison resistance. Then Taejin stops and analyzes a large pit just ahead. He realizes it might be a dead end and suggests they go back a bit. Taejin complains that the map seems to be making them walk in circles, and Junyun sees this as his chance. He convinces himself there's no other way to sabotage the exam and prepares to push his friend. He calls out to Taejin, who turns to look. Then Junyun apologizes and rushes towards him, but instead of pushing him, he runs past Taejin. Junyun throws himself off the cliff, leaving his companion completely confused. The two are left wondering what just happened. He continues to fall towards the bottom of the abyss. At the last second, Taejin grabs him by the foot and asks why he threw himself off like that. Junyun tells him to let go, screaming that he's trash and doesn't deserve to live. Taejin demands to know what he's talking about as he struggles to hold on. Junyun insists that Taejin let him go, but he says they can talk about it later. Then Taijun's stomach rumbles again, and he realizes the timing couldn't be worse. He considers relieving himself right there, thinking no one is watching his stream, but his watch notifies him that 10 people are watching his live feed. He despairs at the thought of being seen, and, while clenching, ends up breaking the edge of the cliff. The ledge gives way completely, and the two fall into the abyss. Addie Min accompanies them in the free fall. After landing, Taejin complains of pain, and Junyeon asks where they are. In the darkness, dozens of red eyes watch them. Soon, they find themselves in a nest full of white snakes. The two realize they are completely screwed. Elsewhere, a viewer comments that Group B is in trouble. The live stream shows Dongjun Yang and Aryum Hong with low stamina as they face the creatures. The viewer wonders if they'll be able to survive, but Aryum flees, screaming for her mother, and Dongjun Yang questions where the hell she's going. Surrounded, one of the hunters calls for help as the snakes advance, but Aryum Hong is eliminated. Elsewhere, Song Yi-jo and Jun Young-bong argue and trade blows, being the next team likely to fail. This leaves only Group A, and it remains to be seen if they can overcome the challenges ahead. Amidst the danger, Saren Yu takes the opportunity to introduce herself to her viewers. She announces that today they will hunt the monsters called Millennial White Serpents and tells everyone to get ready. Then she turns to ask if her partner is ready, but realizes he has already disappeared. Suddenly, Jaeon Kang appears, attacking the monsters alone, much to his partner's surprise. He shouts that this exam is his chance to truly impress his master, and determined not to waste the opportunity, he continues to charge against the creatures. Saren watches him and complains that he's trying to steal all the attention for himself, but she warns that she won't allow it, and prepares her own attack. Then she launches an attack towards the snakes, and the huntress declares that she won't be anyone's sidekick because she is the star of the exam. The promising hunters from the two major guilds are the first to arrive at the boss chamber. Upon their arrival, Jin-hyuk Choi applauds them and says they did well, as he expected nothing less from them. Jin-hyuk Choi invites them to follow him to the boss room, but Saren Yu interrupts him, as the hunter Taejin Lee has not yet arrived. He then explains that he can't get any broadcast signal from Group D and suspects they have been eliminated. Jaeon Kang claims he's a nobody, and Saren regrets not being able to see the hunter who impressed Suyeon Cha. So Jin-hyuk guides them to the boss monster's room, and the two agree to follow him. He believes Junyeon must have done a good job delaying Taejin, and he continues walking, certain that Suyeon Cha will be very disappointed when he finds out. Upon entering the chamber, the three are completely astonished. They find the dungeon's boss monster already defeated. On a stone throne, a skeletal creature watches them, and everyone wonders what happened in that place. Junyeon Kim's unique skill, Inhale, absorbs the enemy's magic attack and returns it. Its power is proportional to the amount absorbed, allowing it to nullify increasingly stronger spells. So, his skill combined with an Archmage's fireball was used to create a new technique. Taejin climbs onto Junyeon's shoulders, and the two use the power to propel themselves forward. He asks if his companion can take more, and Junyeon confirms he's fine. Taejin points and says they will go straight to the boss room with a single push, and his partner agrees. Back in the chamber, Jin-hyuk comments that the dungeon boss was supposed to be the Imugi dragon. He wonders what happened, as not only is the Imugi dead, but there's also a necromancer on site. The skeletal creature watches them from its throne, and he questions if someone tampered with the exam. The necromancer then reveals a smile. Jaeon Kang, Saren Yu, and Jin-hyuk shudder at the scene. One of the hunters questions what an undead necromancer is doing here. Jin-hyuk yells for his two companions to retreat immediately. The creature raises its staff towards the defeated dragon's head, and then it reanimates the monster's head. Jin-hyuk Choi prepares for battle with his spear in hand, but the creature strikes him with its tail, flinging him far away. Saren Yu says they can't just stand by and prepares to fight alongside Jaeon Kang. She then fires an ice arrow, while he charges forward with a dragon punch. The necromancer simply points a finger in the direction of the attack. The creature repels the blows, which end up hitting the two young hunters. "Fallen!" Jin-hyuk shouts as he sees his companions get injured. He realizes the necromancer is controlling the monster and charges, determined to take it down first. Something whizzes past his face as he runs. Suddenly, the creature's tail wraps around his body and traps him. Jin-hyuk scolds himself for letting his guard down and attacking recklessly. The monster's head approaches for the final blow, and he believes this is his end. He just wishes he had told a certain girl something before it was all over. Suddenly, Taejin and Junyeon burst out from inside the creature, shouting that they made it out. Watching from afar, Suyeon Cha wonders if he's seeing things. Junyeon celebrates with Taejin for reaching the boss area, saying it was all thanks to him. Jin-hyuk is confused about what happened, but he realizes that they somehow saved his life. He then yells for Taejin and Junyeon to get away from the Imugi immediately. Taejin looks up, confused, and the monster's huge mouth lunges to devour them. At the last second, he pushes Junhyun away, and an attack hits the ground right where they were. Taijin approaches Jinhyuk and questions him about the situation, stating that this is overkill for a B-rank exam. Jinhyuk concludes that someone tampered with the dungeon to prevent a specific person from passing the exam. This is because the person has the potential to be a threat or has connections with another guild. He finds the whole situation too complicated to understand, but Taijin simply points to the necromancer and says they just need to kill that guy. He comments that he hates the idea of teaming up with Jinhyuk, who replies that he feels the same, but they both accept that they have no choice and form a temporary alliance for the battle. Taijin asks if Junhyun can absorb any more fireballs, but he denies it, saying he's eaten too much already. The Imugi dragon's head moves and turns towards them. The creature spits an attack, and Jinhyuk yells for Taijin to be careful. Taijin prepares for the attack and states that he can see the projectiles. Then he fires a fireball with 20% of his power. The attack hits the monster's head squarely. Jinhyuk warns that it's over for it and gets into position with the second form of the Skybreaker spear style. He then charges, delivering the burning spear of the Autumn Gale attack. His strike hits the creature dead on. The creature dissolves, and the necromancer is behind it. Saren warns that the necromancer is defenseless, and Gaeon Kang prepares to attack. Jaeon rushes quickly towards the enemy. He shouts that a real man strikes at the first opportunity, then he attacks with his glacial dragon fist. Taijin encourages Junhyun to use his skill one more time, claiming they are the best duo, and he agrees to try. Junhyun prepares to use the duo's secret combo. They then launch their special attack, the Hellbound Express. Their attack collides with Jaeon's strike, which shatters on impact. Jinhyuk Choi smiles and asks if they managed to hit him. Then all the hunters are completely shocked by what they see. The necromancer remains standing, unharmed, as the attacks did not affect. The creature simply raises its staff, and then it attacks with spikes that rise from the ground. Jaeon Kong and Junhyun Kim are hit squarely by the attack. The spikes also hit Taijin Lee and Saren Yu. Wounded, Taijin says it's impossible, as not even an undead necromancer should be immune to damage. He concludes they're forgetting something, as they don't know enough about the enemy, and then Addie Min asks if he forgot about her. Taijin is surprised to see Addie appear in front of him and calls out her name. She comments that he has no idea how much trouble it was to download the app. Then she gets ready and asks if they should test the map hack. A navigation system runs. Then Addie gets ready and asks if they should test the map hack. Taijin questions what she's talking about as the system begins to collect dungeon data. The program maps the layout, analyzes nearby monsters, and reconstructs the map based on the data. Soon after, Parsley navigation is executed, and a holographic map appears at Taijin's feet. He is confused and asks what this Parsley navigation is. Addie explains that the app provides various details about the dungeon, such as attack patterns, hidden paths, and rewards. She also says she has installed other apps and that he can test them as much as he wants. Taijin realizes this is more than a map hack. It's basically a cheat code. The navigation confirms that the dungeon boss should be the Imugi dragon, a B-rank monster. He then turns to the necromancer and wonders where that monster came from. The skeletal creature begins to speak in an unknown language. Soon, the Parsley translator activates and reveals that Lord Eratus is very, very happy. Taijin is completely bewildered and wonders what the hell that was. He asks Addie what's wrong with the app, and she suggests it might be a glitch. The translator continues, saying that Eratus thanks the summoner for gathering so many humans, and Addie concludes that the apps still have a lot of problems. Taijin finds the translation weird, but good enough to understand the words. He notices the mention of a summoner and wonders if the monster was forcibly summoned. He then asks if Jinhyuk can still move, and he replies that he managed to avoid any fatal blows. Taijin says that, believe it or not, he thinks he's found the necromancer's weakness. Jinhyuk questions how he would know, but his companion says there's no time to explain the details. He just asks Jinhyuk to trust him, as he needs his cooperation for the plan. Jinhyuk watches him in silence for a moment, and then he finally agrees and asks what they need to do first. With a smile, Taijin says the first thing to do is to piss it off. The group starts waving and shouting, calling the skeleton out to fight. Taijin taunts it, asking why it won't attack them and if it's a coward. The necromancer replies that it sees they are very eager to die, and the creature states that it will be very fun to destroy them all as it prepares an attack. Jinhyuk yells for Saren to dodge the incoming attack. Taijin points forward and orders everyone to follow him now. The spikes erupt from the ground, but everyone manages to narrowly escape. Jinhyuk comments that it was a close call, and the group recovers from the shock. Taijin explains that, as Addie said, he can see all of the necromancer's attack patterns. With this advantage, he believes it will be very easy to execute his plan. Taijin starts taunting the enemy, saying it couldn't land a single hit. He continues, asking if the necromancer is trembling with fear. while Jin Hyuk watches him. The creature then launches a new attack with several projectiles in their direction. Taijin yells for Gyeon Kang to take 3 steps to the right and for Junyun to retreat 5 steps. The energy spheres explode where they had been standing. Taijin observes the scene carefully. The hunters are impressed, as they actually manage to dodge the attack. The necromancer praises their impressive dodging skills, and then it challenges them to dodge its next attack, which seems to cover the entire area. Jin Hyuk asks Taijin how they will manage to dodge that blow. Suddenly, the hunters are enveloped by an analysis system. Taijin realizes that with an attack that targets every inch of the dungeon, the only way to not get hit is to move forward. Then the necromancer launches its attack called Requiem of Death. It scoffs at the humans, saying that if they keep dodging, it will use an attack they cannot escape. Taijin yells for everyone to attack it now, and the group charges towards it. He then reveals that the necromancer is on its cooldown. The necromancer is perplexed and questions how they survived that blow. It still doesn't understand what happened as the hunters surround it. Iratus' skill, Requiem of Death, is an extreme area of effect attack that increases in power the closer it is to its maximum range, but its power is weaker near the center of the explosion. And aware of this detail from Parsley navigation, Taijin knew what to do. He minimized the damage by advancing to the center and tells Hunter Yu that now is her chance. She confirms and prepares her attack. Saren freezes it with her freezing wind attack. It comments that they overcame its attack, but asks what they will do now that nothing can even scratch it. Taijin just orders them to keep it from moving. Taijin shouts that he's leaving the rest to them and runs off. The frozen necromancer questions where he's going. Then the creature begins to realize what's happening. As he runs, Taijin knows the necromancer was summoned through a summoner's offering, which acts as its host. It's practically immortal until that offering is destroyed. And then he finally finds the host of that filthy skeleton. If he can destroy that chest, he can undo the summoning. Iratus breaks free from the ice and accuses him of daring to deceive it. The creature vows it will never forgive him and rushes quickly towards Taijun. The monster prepares an attack with its staff, and the blow is about to hit him squarely. But the other hunters jump in front, and Jin Hyuk questions where it thinks it's going. He warns that the enemy isn't going anywhere. Then he attacks it, shouting that not while he's around. The blow hits the necromancer, which stumbles back from the impact. Jin Hyuk yells to Taijin that they've pinned it down and that he must finish this. With a nod, Taijin thanks Jin Hyuk for his help. As he runs, a skeletal hand erupts from the ground, and the creature begs him to stop. He concentrates all his strength into a single fist. With a devastating punch, he completely shatters the wall in front of him. The necromancer watches the smoke rise from the point of impact. Amidst the rubble, the chest that serves as the host is finally revealed. Taijin reaches the object and exclaims that he found it. Jin Hyuk manages to pin the necromancer to the ground with his 2 spears. He remembers the necromancer's weakness that Taijin mentioned and looks toward a dark cave. Then he wonders if its weakness could be in there. The necromancer thrashes on the ground, trying to break free. The creature grows desperate as it's once again pinned down by the other hunters. It wonders how Taijin discovered its secret, since only the summoner should know. And then the monster asks itself who in the world this human is. Holding the chest, Taijin calls out to it and threatens to smash the object to bits. The necromancer suddenly freezes, shocked that Taijin can speak its ancient dialect. Taijin warns it to listen closely, as he might live if he cooperates. But Iratus explains he was summoned by a contract and can't follow anyone else's orders. Taijin simply replies that the contract can be destroyed. The creature says that's impossible for an ordinary human and calls him a bony weakling. Then Taijin asks if he looks like an ordinary human. The necromancer realizes its opponent not only saw through its spells, but also discovered the relic's location. The necromancer questions its opponent's true intentions. Then it wonders if this human really knows how to nullify the contract. For now, the creature decides to trust him. Iratus asks if there's anything he wants, saying he can do whatever he desires, but Taijin remarks that this only made his stomach ache worse. He demands the necromancer unsummon all the skeletons outside, and the creature is stunned, asking how he knew. Taijin states he knew about the skeletons even before arriving, as his navigation detected an anomaly on the map. The other hunters were still fighting against the hordes of undead. He warns that if he catches him lying, he'll break his wrist, and Iratus agrees to cooperate. The necromancer asks what he wants next, and Taijin confirms they're not done yet. He then demands the creature bring him everything it owns. Iratus is confused and asks what he means by that. Taijin says it must have items or accessories, and that it's impossible for it to have nothing to give. Then he points to the creature's staff and comments that he sees something good there. The necromancer begs him not to take its precious staff, saying it can't hand that over. Taijin squeezes the chest and says the item is his now, threatening to break it. With no choice, Iratus hands his staff to the young man, who celebrates his win. Then the necromancer asks if he'll undo the contract now, promising to do anything in return. But Taejin reveals he has no idea how to do that, and the translator is disabled. The creature is left completely speechless upon hearing the answer. He continues, saying he doesn't even know the summoning spell, and tells the monster to follow him. The necromancer is enraged by the revelation, and it accuses the human of having deceived the mighty Iratus. Taejin then raises the chest and threatens it again, saying he'll break it if it gets any closer. The creature charges forward anyway, and the young man smashes the relic on the ground. The monster begins to disintegrate, saying this can't be real. As it vanishes, it laments that it doesn't want to go and says it needs to become even greater. Taejin comments that the guy disappeared in style, and Addy agrees. He approaches the wreckage, stating that this must be the summoner's offering, and picks something up. It was a severed finger, and Addy wonders who could have cut it off and if they were after Taejin. Taejin says he doesn't care about the rest as long as he gets the items, while Addy calls him materialistic. Suddenly, she seems to notice something. Then she tells Taejin there's another item on the ground, making him excited about the discovery. He picks up the item and assumes it must be expensive since it came from the necromancer. The other hunters come running over and ask if he's okay. He puts the staff away and assures them he's fine. Jin-hyuk then asks if he really defeated the necromancer by himself. Taejin confirms he did, saying the enemy vanished without a trace. Gaeon Kang congratulates him, and Saren Yu praises him for being amazing. Jin-hyuk then walks over and calls him by his name. He bows and apologizes, but Junyeon interrupts, confessing that it was Jin-hyuk who told him to poison him and push him into the pit. Jin-hyuk says he doesn't know how things got to that point, but he was annoyed seeing someone as talentless as him trying so hard. He then sincerely apologizes to Taejin. With a smile, Taejin says he didn't even realize he was behind it all and that he should have done a better job. Taejin questions if Jin-hyuk really thought he'd make him fail the exam, concluding he was never that smart. Then he says that since he just became a B level, Jin-hyuk should treat him to a meal. Jin-hyuk agrees to buy him whatever he wants, and the two shake hands as Taejin suggests a Wagyu steak. With a bit of hesitation, Jin-hyuk mentions he's curious about something. He leans in and whispers, asking if Taejin has any feelings for Seona. The question leaves Taejin completely shocked and speechless. Junyeon asks if he likes her, and Jin-hyuk denies it, while Taejin tells him to shut up. Suddenly, a gate opens on the cave wall. Saren and Junyeon celebrate that they can finally leave and can't wait to eat again. Taejin smiles and agrees they should head back. As the group heads for the exit, his stomach starts to rumble again. Jin-hyuk steps through the portal just ahead of Taejin. A voice welcomes them, saying it's glad to see they all made it. They find themselves before a group of people who congratulate them on becoming B-level hunters. Taejin immediately recognizes Yanhwa Seo of Blue Lotus and Taepyeong Ma of Hwarang. Taejin wonders what the country's top hunters, Taepyeong Ma of Hwarang and Yanhwa Seo of Blue Lotus, are doing there. Yanhwa Seo steps forward and states that, as everyone already knows, the exam was tampered with. She recalls that an Imugi dragon became an undead and a necromancer appeared, monsters that shouldn't have been there. She continues, saying they determined the incident was the work of a faction trying to undermine the Blue Lotus or Hwarang guilds. Then the woman stops right in front of Taejin and declares that he is the culprit. She points directly at Hunter Taejin Lee as the one responsible. Completely confused, Taejin can only question what she said. Yanhwa Seo questions what they mean, stating that the man fought hard alongside them and that it wouldn't make sense. She then corrects herself, saying she actually thinks he did it all by himself. Yanhwa explains she was watching everyone's fight against the undead necromancer on a live feed, and it was Taejin Lee who controlled the battle, from helping everyone dodge the necromancer's attacks to discovering the secret area. Even without being able to see what was inside, she's sure the place held the secrets to the necromancer's weakness. So, she asks if it isn't strange that a D-rank hunter would have such important information. One of the hunters next to Saren Yu agrees that it makes sense. Yanhwa glares at Taejin Lee and demands he speak now. She asks him directly if he already knew an undead necromancer would appear. Taejin Lee denies it, saying he had no idea. Taepyeong Ma appears behind him and asks what he's waiting for. He threatens that if the boy doesn't answer, he will kill him right there. Taejin Lee understands the man is really going to kill him. He needs to calm down, as there must be a way to clear his name. Then, he remembers the necromancer's offering and the summoner's contract. Taejin Lee asks them to wait and listen to him. He reveals that his dream was actually to become a necromancer. Taepyeong Ma asks what he's talking about. The young man explains that, from an early age, he researched a lot about the characteristics, skill patterns, and weaknesses of all undead monsters, and that's how he knew the necromancer was hiding its host body somewhere, Manhwa asks if he really expects her to believe such nonsense, so he tells them to look at something if they still don't believe him. All the hunters react to what he shows them. He reveals a finger he found inside a chest, stating it's proof that someone made a contract with the necromancer. He deduces that the necromancer didn't appear randomly, since Jin-hyuk Choi had said the dungeon boss was supposed to be an Imugi dragon. He adds that the necromancer is forbidden from disobeying its summoner's orders, which makes it impossible for the culprit to be one of them, as they were all attacked. Manhwa agrees that everything he said is true, as there would be no reason to protect the other hunters if he were the culprit. Tai Pyong-ma then asks who the criminal is, questioning if it might be someone from a dark magic guild. A voice states that the truth is closer than it seems. Taijin Lee declares that the suspect is somewhere here. He then asks everyone to check each other's hands. The crowd starts demanding to see fingers, while one man refuses, asking why he should show his. A man in a suit reacts nervously. He tries to run but is pointed out as the owner of the finger. Adimin asks Taijin how he knew the culprit would be present. He replies that's how it usually goes in mystery comics, and that being a detective is pretty easy. Adimin gives him a look of contempt. Tai Pyong-ma moves forward and Yeonhwa Seo prepares to not let him escape. The culprit is blocked by a barrier. Tai Pyong-ma charges at him, shouting that it's unforgivable that he dared to touch his disciple. He readies his rising dragon fist attack, but he stops the blow at the last second. The man has poisoned himself to death. Tai Pyong-ma asks what everyone is doing and orders them to take the man's body to the association's headquarters. He demands they find out who sent him and why, and the others agree. Yeonhwa Seo reflects that someone used dark magic to attack the Blue Lotus and Hwarang Guild. Yeonhwa Seo declares she will expose whoever is behind this, no matter the cost. She approaches to apologize for the misunderstanding with Taijin and promises to compensate him. But Taijin Lee suddenly faints and falls to the ground, leaving her surprised. Lying there, he realizes he's out of mana while Adi Min tells him to wake up. Sometime later, he awakens in a dark place and hears someone say that he's awake. He then recognizes Jin-hyuk and a young woman looking at him. Now sitting up in a hospital bed, Taejin asks what they're doing here. The girl says they came to visit since she heard he fainted, and Jin-hyuk adds he just wanted to see if he wasn't dead. She comments that he must have pushed himself too hard and that the doctor said it could have been much worse. The girl then says she heard he was amazing in the B-rank exam. Jin-hyuk shows him his phone and tells him to check it out, as the whole internet is talking about him. Taijin reads the article and the comments praising him for his intelligence and for carrying the other hunters. Jin-hyuk scoffs, saying they make it sound like he killed the necromancer alone and that he wouldn't have stood a chance without his help. But the young woman scolds him, stating she watched the replay and that Taijin really did carry everyone. Taijin remarks that it's been a while since the three of them talked like this. The room door opens and a voice announces that Taijin is awake. Yeonhwa Seo enters the room and he recognizes her as the guild master. He asks what brings her here and she replies that he probably doesn't know. She reveals she's the president of this hospital, leaving Taijin shocked. Yeonhwa explains they brought him to her guild's hospital because it's a safe place and she also owes him one, making him question why. She states that he saved Siren, her guild's little cutie. As he repeats the word cutie, she says just the thought of losing her breaks her heart into pieces. She then leans on the bed and asks him to tell her what he desires, and she guarantees she will reward him. Taejin replies that he's not sure what he desires at the moment. Yeonhwa says he doesn't have to decide now, as they have plenty of time. She informs him that she'll be waiting in her office on the top floor of the building so he can look for her when he's better. Before leaving, she encourages him to knock on her door when he decides what he wants. The young woman hugs him, exclaiming that he's matured so much. She continues, saying she remembers how he used to get constantly lost in dungeons and that she's very proud of him. Jin-hyuk grumbles that he's one lucky bastard. The girl asks if he's thought about what he wants, but Taijin replies that nothing comes to mind. His friend suggests he ask for a magic item, since Yeonhwa Seo is one of the best mage class hunters. He then considers the idea of a magic item, but he decides he needs to recover first and can think more about it later. The girl offers him a drink so he'll get better soon, and he thanks her. She says goodbye, mentioning she and Jin-hyuk have plans, and Taijin waves to them. Adi Min comments that this is quite a dilemma for him. She continues, saying that the fact such a beautiful woman is offering him whatever he wants makes her heart race. He wonders what he should ask for and considers if it should be money, but he dismisses the idea, stating that only a fool would ask for money, and decides he'll ask for something money can't buy. First, he needs to figure out what he needs most right now. He then asks Adi where all the items he looted are. She suspects they were automatically registered in the salsa market storage. Taijin then asks what the salsa market is. Adi replies that he finally asked. She explains it's a huge secondhand trading platform with over 100 million online users. There, users from different dimensions trade money for items at reasonable prices, and new signups get VVIP access. She finishes the invitation to sign up, but Taijin asks if she's shooting a commercial. He then realizes and asks if people from other dimensions also use the market. As Addie encourages him, he recalls that she said he's the only one on the planet using this new version of the status window. This means he has exclusive access to artifacts from other dimensions and is the only one in the salsa market who can sell items from Earth, which means he can monopolize the market. He rubs his hands together, saying he can already hear the ka-chings. Taijin declares he's going in now to collect a ton of amazing items. He then presses the button to sign up. After a quick scan, the system welcomes him to the salsa market. Taijin finds himself in a medieval-style square, surrounded by other users. He observes different items for sale, like a dragon skin shield and an emerald of arcana. The young man comments that the place looks like a generic mobile game, and Addie suggests they take a look around. He approaches a vendor and asks if he can see the price of an item. The vendor then presents the dragon skin shield, which costs 18,000 salsa coins. Taijin holds the item and asks what salsa coins are and how much 18,000 is worth. Addie explains that 18,000 salsa coins are equivalent to about 240,000 mana shards. He's shocked when he calculates that the item is worth the same as 10 luxury cars, over 1,000,000,001. He asks if there's anything cheaper, but Addie informs him that's an average price for the items there. Taijin realizes that basically, he can't buy anything, but he remembers he also has items and wonders how much he could sell them for. He apologizes to the vendor, saying he's a newbie, and summons one of his own items. He asks the vendor if he could quickly check the price of the item he hands him. The vendor inspects the bone staff with his lens. He then informs the young man that he can't sell that, leaving Taijin confused. The vendor explains the staff seems powerful, but it's cursed, and only the most skilled mages could break the curse. Taijin realizes this means he can't even use the item. He then shows a small crystal he looted from the same monster and asks about it. The man estimates the item should sell for about 10 coins, to Taijin's astonishment. Disappointed, he walks away, but Addie tells him not to worry, as everyone starts somewhere. A voice approaches and asks if he wants to trade. A user named Lord Demonstar says he wants to take a look at the crystal and sends a trade request. Taijin hesitates, saying it's worthless, but the other user insists that he accept. Lord Demonstar holds the crystal and states that the piece is useful if it's enhanced, offering to pay for the enhancement cost. Taijin finds the proposal incredible, but the demon sets a condition. If the enhancement fails, he'll have to cover the costs. The condition leaves Taijin and Addie speechless. Lord Demonstar adds that if the enhancement succeeds, it'll all be free, and asks if they have a deal. Addie advises him to ignore the demon, as he's probably a scammer. She explains he's the type of con artist who takes advantage of newbies to get free item enhancements. Only a complete loser would fall for such a simple trick. But he has an idea. Taijin asks if he can keep enhancing the item for as long as he wants, and the demon confirms he can stop whenever he wishes. He then agrees to start immediately. Addie tries to stop him, asking what he's doing and if he's already planning to go bankrupt. He reassures her, saying not to worry, as he wouldn't do this if he didn't know he had a chance. She questions what chance he's talking about, but he just tells her to sit back and watch. He declares he'll show her what the God of Luck will do for him, as his explosive growth skill activates, significantly increasing the enhancement success rate. The rules are simple. Taijin can keep enhancing the item for as long as he wants and stop whenever he wishes. If he succeeds in completing the enhancements, the total cost will be paid by his trading partner. But if the enhancement fails even once, Taijin will pay for all of them. It's a game of risk and reward to see who will come out on top in the trading duel. Lord Demonstar gives him 100 salsa coins and the ingredients for the enhancement. The demon asks if he's going to do the enhancement right there or if he should take him to a shrine. Taijin replies that he'll act like a man and do it right there, asking if he's nervous yet. The obsidian crystal glows. The enhancement is successful, and the crystal becomes an enhanced obsidian crystal +1. Lord Demonstar comments it was bold of him to try, even with only an 80% chance. He then taunts him, saying if he runs away now, he'll be nothing but a chicken. Taijin replies, "No way." He declares he's taking the item to enhancement level 9 in one go, and that the demon can run if he wants. Lord Demonstar questions if he's sure about trying 9 times at once. Taijin then points out that he's the one who looks all sweaty and nervous now. Lord Demonstar considers Taijin a rookie, knowing there's less than a 0.01% chance of reaching level 9 without a single failure. He calls him a joker, but agrees and hands him the ingredients. Taijin accepts the items for the enhancement. He then presses the enhancement button and says, "Here I go." Quickly, he taps the screen several times in a row. Addie reacts with surprise, asking what he's doing. Lord Demonstar laughs, certain the fool will now have to pay for everything, but Taijin turns around and announces it was a success. The item becomes an enhanced obsidian crystal +9 with an A+ rank. Shocked, the demon asks how he managed to do that. He can't understand how the guy got 9 consecutive enhancements without a single failure. Taijin kisses the crystal while the demon wonders if he's some kind of admin. Determined not to let him get away with it, he decides to provoke him into trying one more time. He congratulates him and suggests there's just one more to max out the item. Lord Demonstar encourages him to be a man and risk it all on the final attempt. Taijin ponders the idea of a max enhancement. He managed to reach level 9 with 100% success thanks to his explosive growth bonus. But even with his skill, the final enhancement has only a 10% chance of success, and he could ruin everything if he tries. The curiosity about how incredible a max-enhanced item with such a low success rate would be consumes him. He then agrees but says he has a condition too, making the demon ask what it is. Taijin demands he take him to the shrine. They arrive at Pyrrhian's summit, the famous enhancement shrine. There, several people pray desperately for the success of their enhancements, risking everything. Taijin remains calm amidst the commotion, with the hands of other hunters on him. He says he can feel all the sorrowful laments emanating from the items. Addie asks if the chances increase if he does the enhancement there. He replies, "No. Not at all." Confused, she asks why on earth he brought them there. He explains the reason he came is because luck has a flow. Taijin states that whether it's a 10% or 1% chance, success happens eventually. The problem is knowing when. If he can pinpoint the exact moment by reading the flow, he can succeed no matter how small the chance. Addie agrees it makes sense, but questions what this place has to do with the flow. He asks if she can't hear the countless items wailing in despair. Here he can read the flow, as another user mourns the loss of their item. He can see when he should or shouldn't take a risk. All the cries of joy and misery decide the flow and the right moment. He raises his hand, and at that exact moment, the flow of luck came to him. He braces himself and presses the enhancement button. The enhancement energy is released. Lord Demonstar thinks the guy has gone crazy for actually trying a max enhancement. He believes it's impossible to go from level 0 to 10 without a single failure. Everyone in the place watches the result with apprehension. Taijin celebrates the success and the notification that the obsidian crystal has been enhanced to +110. The surrounding crowd remarks they've never seen a max enhancement for that gem, leaving Lord Demonstar speechless. Lord Demonstar calls him a cheating bastard, accusing him of using a hack because what he did was impossible. Taijin asks what he's talking about and questions if he isn't the real scammer here. He walks closer and asks who the scoundrel was that was trying to trick a newbie by pretending to help. The demon threatens him, saying he'll report him so he can never come back, but Taijin and Addie wave goodbye to everyone and block him before disappearing. Lord Demonstar screams for him to give back his money as the young man logs out of the salsa market. Back in his bed, Taijin celebrates the nice trip and getting a max-enhanced item for free, while Addie scolds him for the risk. She asks him what he would have done if he had failed and how he would have paid for all those coins. He simply replies that he could have just run away if he'd failed. Taijin reflects on how that demon was such a blockhead, making Addie think he's the real demon. He also mentions he got some good information and summons the cursed staff. Looking at the item, he says he might be able to use it. The scene shifts to Yeonhwa Seo's office on the hospital's top floor. Someone knocks on the door, and she, sitting at her desk, says to come in. Taijin opens the door and greets Master Seo, who asks if he's feeling better already. He replies that he's not 100% yet, but he can move around well, as she can see. She assumes that since he came to see her, he's already figured out what he wants. She analyzes him, as he far surpassed the other hunters during the exam. She concludes that if she's not mistaken, he'll be one of the country's top hunters in the coming years. Now, she wants to know what he desires from the Blue Lotus and questions him. He takes a step forward and starts to say that he wants her. Taijin then takes her hands and declares that he wants Hunter Yeonhwa Seo. In front of a building, Taijin Lee asks if she's after his ability. In the elevator, Yeonhwa Seo questions his way of speaking, and he asks if he said something odd. She tells him not to worry, as it was just a small misunderstanding. Taijin wonders what there could be to misunderstand. The door is open on the 3rd basement level. Yeonhwa comments that she expected a grander request than simply removing a curse from an item. Then he hands her the skull staff. She analyzes the cursed item he obtained in his D-rank days, and Taijin confirms. Yeonhwa prepares to check the curse, stating it won't take long with her ability. The hunter then activates her spellbreak technique. Taijin Lee recognizes it as one of Yeonhwa Seo's S-rank skills. Spellbreak is a nullification technique that analyzes a spell's structure to undo it. A curse is basically a trap made of complex formulas that the ability can nullify. A man reveals that what he really wants is her exact ability. The perfect obsidian crystal of mimicry is an item capable of scanning and saving a target's skill. Taijin Lee declares that he won't settle for just just an item, as he'll use the crystal to remove the curse and learn a new skill. He then prepares to use the artifact. The moment he announces he's going to copy the skill, the staff shatters and releases a creature. Manhwa Seo reacts to the sudden appearance. The creature lunges forward and attacks her. Taijin Lee is shocked by what happened. Then, he wonders how a monster could have appeared out of nowhere. He runs toward Manhwa Seo, calling her name, but Taijin lands a kick on the creature and tells it to get lost. As he's busy learning a new move, he notices something about the monster. The kick had no effect on the creature whatsoever. He realizes physical attacks don't work. Then, he prepares a 20% fireball. The attack hits the monster head-on. Taijun asks if Manhwa is okay. She replies that the wound isn't fatal, but admits she let her guard down. Taijin Lee asks what that monster was and where it came from. Manhwa Seo corrects him, stating that it's not a monster, much to his surprise. She explains that it's the physical form of the curse itself, a cursed apparition. He's surprised to learn the curse was inside the staff, and Manhwa adds that only her spell break can undo it. But the apparition cast a debuff on her, preventing her from using the skill at the moment. Since it's an emergency, she decides she'll have to destroy the creature by force. Manhwa apologizes for his staff, but promises to grant his wish another time. Taijin asks her to wait a minute. He despairs, realizing he'll lose both the staff and the skill. He then reminds her that she has a skill called Power Infusion, and Manhwa confirms. Taijin asks her to lend him Spellbreak for a moment so he can take care of the creature. She warns him that an apparition of that level can't be undone with a borrowed skill. The hunter explains that it's a high-level curse, and that even she would take some time to dispel it. He then places a hand on his chest and asks her to trust him just this once. Manhwa Seo sighs and agrees, asking if his desire to get rid of the curse is really that great. She explains that Spellbreak requires many difficult calculations, and that he'll need to follow her instructions carefully. Manhwa tells him to start, as the buff won't last long, and Taijin Lee tells her to leave it to him. A notification informs him that he's received a buff from Power Infusion and has obtained the temporary right to use Spellbreak. He decides that if she can't do it, he'll do it himself. He positions the obsidian crystal behind him as she places a hand on his back. The apparition lunges forward to attack. Taijin casts Spellbreak, and the obsidian crystal begins scanning his actions. The Spellbreak skill is successfully saved to the obsidian crystal of mimicry. The spell hits the apparition, and a new skill combining Spellbreak with Calculator is created. Manhwa starts giving instructions, but Taijin interrupts her, saying he doesn't need explanations. He claims he's got the hang of it now. She questions him, saying he'll need more than just instincts for this. Taijin tells her not to worry and moves in to attack again. The cursed apparition braces for the new attack. Taijin Lee yells that he doesn't care if it's an apparition or not. Then, he unleashes his ultimate secret technique so he can sell the item. The creature is hit squarely by the attack. Manhwa Seo watches, unable to believe he's actually removing the curse. She reflects that even a prodigious talent would take over 5 years to analyze and calculate all the formulas for that spell. The hunter wonders just how much hidden potential Taijin Lee really has. The cursed apparition begins to unravel. A notification confirms that Spellbreak has destroyed the creature and removed the curse from the staff of Eratus. He turns to Manhwa and compliments her, leaving her confused. Taijin says she's amazing for being able to handle such a difficult skill, and that he still has a long way to go. She realizes he's even more exceptional than she imagined. Manhwa thinks that joining the Blue Lotus might actually hinder his growth. She then suggests he visit the Hwarang Guild, as the guild master has something to give him. The huntress advises him to seek him out when he has time. She assures him the visit will be worthwhile. Taijin Lee arrives at the Hwarang Guild, located on Gwanak Mountain. Then, Taepyeong Ma asks if he wants to see his ascending dragon fist. He stretches and declares that it is the greatest form of martial arts. Taepyeong tells the young man to watch and learn, as it's not something you see every day. He then takes a step forward. The guild master advances using Ghost Step, and he unleashes the ascending dragon horn. Taepyeong asks if he enjoyed the demonstration, and Taijin replies that his jaw dropped. With the obsidian crystal in hand, he asks Master Ma to continue, as the item is already scanning his actions. At the Mythos Guild headquarters, Taijin Lee begins testing his new skills. He moves quickly using the copy of Ghost Step. Then the hunter attacks a group of monsters with the copy of the ascending dragon horn. Addy Min watches him as he celebrates making an exact replica of the move. He thanks Master Ma for letting him copy the skills for free, but a notification informs him that his strength attribute is insufficient, causing a 50% reduction in the damage of his new techniques. Taijin gets annoyed, realizing nothing is free, and Addy Min agrees with him. He regrets not having exercised before, as an image of Taepyeong Ma appears, declaring that the source of all mana is muscles. An urgent quest instructs him to train the ascending dragon fist technique, and he calculates that it will take at least 10 hours. He falls to the ground, disappointed that he can't take a shortcut. Taijin then lifts his face with a new expression. He stands up and declares that, compared to the 7 years of suffering he endured, this is nothing, and so he decides he will max out his strength. Addie encourages him, and Taijin begins training intensely against various monsters. A young woman enters the hallway carrying a shopping bag. A young woman arrives, telling Taijin that while training is important, he needs to rest, and that she brought him something to eat. She then stops and looks confused. Taijin is breathing heavily, his body covered in sweat. The girl wonders when he got so muscular. She watches him and remarks that he's been acting very strangely lately. Until recently, he was weak, but he passed the B rank exam, outperforming other candidates, and now has the attention of the Hwarang and Blue Lotus guild masters. His incredible growth rate isn't normal, like a butterfly that just emerged from its chrysalis and is starting to fly. She confides in Soo-yeon-cha, saying she's happy that his strength is being recognized, but at the same time she feels him growing more distant. Surprised by his presence, she greets him and says she heard he was honing his swordsmanship in the training room. She then worries that he'll find out she let a stranger use the training facilities without permission. Soo-yeon-cha calms her down, telling her not to worry, as he knows she wouldn't lend the place to just anyone. The two watch Taijin fight, and Master Cha explains he came because of an extraordinary energy he felt, and isn't surprised to see it was him. He analyzes the hunter's movements. Soo-yeon-cha approaches and greets him, and Taijin responds to Master Cha's call. He says he heard about him passing the B-rank exam, and is glad he wasn't mistaken about him. Taijin Lee thanks Master Cha for the praise. Soo-yeon-cha asks if he's still a freelancer, and the hunter confirms. The guildmaster assumes he's available, and Taijin asks what he means. He explains that there's a mission in 4 days, but one of the team members got injured and won't be able to go. The young woman interrupts him and asks him to wait, and Master Cha asks what's wrong. She expresses her concern, saying the mission might be too difficult for Hunter Taijin. He then asks what the dungeon level is, and the girl replies that it's level 2, and they have no information about the place. The young hunter adds that they don't know what dangers they might encounter, and worries he'll get hurt. Taijin watches her for a moment. Then he asks if she still sees him as a weakling. Master Cha reassures them, stating that the dungeon won't be difficult for them. He turns to Taijin and asks what he thinks, suggesting the experience would help him more than training against virtual monsters. Taijin then realizes that fighting in real battles will speed up his training tenfold. He says he's interested but has a question, and Soo-yeon-cha encourages him to ask. Taijin asks if freelancers get to keep all the mana fragments from the monsters they defeat. As Taijin Lee walks down the sidewalk with Addie Min, his phone won't stop buzzing. The messages on his phone are rushing him to an appointment at 11:30 sharp. He complains that the person is really annoying, and Addie calls his attention. She questions if it's safe to walk around, as they still haven't found who tampered with the exam. Taijin reassures her, saying he'll be with the Mythos hunters on this mission. Addie Min then asks if he's sure he can trust the Mythos guild. He explains that, because of the long friendship between the guild masters, there's little chance Mythos was involved in the sabotage. Besides, he claims he can defeat them all with his Dragon Fist and Spell Break, but Addie accuses him of being overconfident. Taijin defends himself, saying those are just facts, while she warns him not to let his guard down. Finally, they arrive in front of a level 2 transformation dungeon. The young hunter from before greets him, saying he arrived early. She then introduces her teammates, Yushik Choi and the healer Young Yun. The youngest member of the group, Young Chol No, introduces himself next. Taijun says it's a pleasure to meet them and suggests they go inside. But the team leader informs him that they're still waiting for one more person. The team leader explains that another member got injured in training last night, so they had to call in an emergency substitute. A car honks, and the driver yells for Taijin Lee to get out of the way. The vehicle's door swings open and hits one of the team members. A man gets out of the car. He approaches and asks Taijun if he didn't hear him or if he needs to clean out his ears first. Taijun calls him a weirdo, and the team leader agrees. He then introduces himself and asks for the newcomer's name. The man stares at him in silence. He then tilts his head back. The hunter spits on the ground and tells the rookie to get lost. Ji-hoon Kim says to stop wasting time since everyone's here, and Taijin Lee vows to himself that he will kill him. The team leader calms him down, whispering that the man is very influential in the industry, but Taijin doubts that loser is important. She explains that Ji-hoon Kim is a freelancer infamous for his terrible character, but strong enough that no one stands up to him. The problem is that he uses his status to steal all the mana fragments, leaving others injured and without resources for treatment. The young woman admits she didn't want him on the team either, and Taijin calls him selfish before getting an idea. Taijin Lee feels a bit offended at being compared to a freeloader. He reflects that it was only a matter of time before he met someone like himself. The A-rank freelance hunter, Ji-hoon Kim, blows smoke in the face of a team member, Taejin then decides he'll make the hunter taste his own medicine. Inside the dungeon, one of the hunters warns that monsters are approaching. A group of creatures charges toward them. The team leader orders everyone to maintain formation so they can take them down one by one, but Ji-hoon Kim ignores her. He charges ahead alone, stating he doesn't have time to mess with these weaklings. After the attack, Ji-hoon comments that his strikes aren't what they used to be, maybe because he hasn't fought in a while. The leader scolds him for acting on his own when they're supposed to work as a team. She warns that if he keeps ignoring her instructions, he'll put the whole team at risk, but he tells her to shut up. Ji-hoon Kim questions how she expects to do anything being such a coward. She gets angry at what he said, and the hunter continues, saying a loser like her will only slow the team down. He then states that money and fame are only for the powerful as he touches her forehead. Walking away, Ji-hoon scoffs at the idea of a little girl leading a team, while Taejin Lee watches the scene. Taejin gets angry and wonders when he'll get a chance to finish off that tattooed bastard. Upon arriving at a castle, a voice welcomes the travelers. Then, Duke Duas, an NPC, introduces himself as the lord of this cursed land. As the team leader bows to thank him, Ji-hoon Kim interrupts and tells the Duke to get to the point. The Duke agrees, stating he doesn't wish to keep the youths in the cursed land for long. He then explains that long ago, this land was a demon-sealing site that imprisoned a great evil. Being a cursed land, it was uninhabitable. But his predecessor managed to obtain sacred relics that sealed the evil forces and brought peace to this land. Taejin Lee then deduces that someone must have stolen these sacred relics. The Duke confirms, saying that once the relics are restored, the land will be purified and life will return. He finishes his explanation, saying the invaders divided the relics and scattered them throughout the region. Ji-hoon Kim scoffs at the mission, calling it a very easy treasure hunt. The other team members comment that while there might not be a main boss, strong monsters could be guarding the artifacts. The group leader informs everyone that there are 4 relics in total, located to the north, east, west, and south. Ji-hoon says she takes things too seriously. He then suggests they split into pairs and head in each direction. The leader argues that it's safer to move as a large group, but Taejin Lee agrees with Ji-hoon's idea. She calls his name, but the hunter silences her with a finger to his lips. Taejin Lee approaches Ji-hoon Kim and says he'd love to team up with him. The team leader instructs everyone to meet in the southern area once they find a relic, and then the group split up. Taejin bows to Ji-hoon and calls him boss, to the hunter's surprise. He explains that he was truly moved by what the hunter said to the team leader. Taejin then repeats Ji-hoon's phrase about how money and fame only come to those with power. He declares that the hunter achieved everything by following that rule, and that he plans to admire him for the rest of his life. Ji-hoon Kim applauds, saying he likes the way he thinks. The hunter asks for Taejin's name again and invites him to be under his leadership. Arriving at a cemetery, Taejin comments on how creepy the place is. He formally asks if the relics can be found there, and Ji-hoon laughs at the question. The hunter points out that there are obviously many monsters hidden there to protect the relics. As Ji-hoon prepares to fight, Taejin asks if he can ask him a favor. He explains that, being a rookie, he's afraid of getting in the way of his hunt. Taejin then points to a small patch of land and asks if he could take care of that area. Ji-hoon Kim stares at him and asks if that's all. Ji-hoon Kim agrees not to interfere in his area, and Taejin Lee thanks him, promising to do his best. While looking for monsters, Ji-hoon prepares to attack the first one he finds. Suddenly, Taejin Lee eliminates a target that appears in his area. He finds a superior mana fragment and thanks the boss, while Ji-hoon calls him a lucky bastard. The hunter gets annoyed at finding nothing, but soon Taejin locates 3 more targets. He then eliminates the 3 monsters with a sequence of blows. More creatures keep appearing for Taejin, but he assures Ji-hoon that he'll take care of them all. Ji-hoon Kim becomes furious and wonders why all the monsters are appearing only in that spot. He then suspects the rookie knew the monsters' location, which are concentrated on a radar, but Ji-hoon dismisses the idea, as he's clearly a rookie. The hunter decides to use one of his moves, even though he didn't want to. He then uses his skill to taunt and lure out all the hidden monsters. Taejin watches the hunter use his area of effect taunt skill. In a previous conversation, the team leader explained that Ji-hoon Kim is primarily a melee fighter. Then she remembered he has an area taunt move, surprising Taejin. The team leader questions his interest in Ji-hoon Kim's skills, and Taejin Lee replies that it's nothing. He then says he just thought the information would be useful. In the present, the radar shows the monsters' locations, and Taejin concludes that all you have to do is piss off an idiot to get them to do exactly what you want. He looks at the radar and thinks that Ji-hoon has no idea how many monsters are hidden there. Thanks to the other hunter's taunt, a horde of monsters rises from the ground. Ji-hoon Kim turns around as he notices the number of creatures. The creatures advance toward him, and Tae-jin Lee wishes him a good time. The hunter wonders why there are so many monsters there. He then yells at Tae-jin to stop standing there like a scarecrow and help him. Tae-jin replies that this is the boss's hunting ground. He starts mumbling a request for permission to enter his territory and help with the hunt. Ji-hoon Kim yells at him to stop messing around and help. A smile appears on Tae-jin's face as he announces he got the message. He warns Ji-hoon not to complain if he eliminates all the monsters. Tae-jin then leaps over the creatures using his copy of Ghost Step. He then smashes the ground with his copy of the Ascending Dragon Fist. Ji-hoon Kim watches the scene and wonders how it's possible since Tae-jin is a B rank. Tae-jin Lee wipes his face and comments that he barely managed to defeat them all. He turns to Ji-hoon, surrounded by a pile of mana fragments, and celebrates having gotten all of them. He thanks Ji-hoon, saying it was all thanks to his incredible taunt, and that he'll follow him for life. Tae-jin suggests they go back since they found the relic, and there's nothing more to gain there, but Ji-hoon disagrees. He then grabs Ji-hoon's arm and says they need to help the other teams and collect as many mana fragments as possible. Tae-jin gets close to his face and instructs him to keep using his taunt skill. Amid the battle's wreckage, a hunter thanks Tae-jin for his help. Dong Junyang states that thanks to him, they found the Holy Lands quickly, but Tae-jin replies that's what friends are for, and the mission is completed. One of the hunters is astonished to see that Tae-jin defeated so many enemies alone. Another group member is impressed by the huge amount of mana fragments, questioning if he can even carry it all. Tae-jin then admits that it's a bit too much for him. He surprises everyone by suggesting they divide the mana fragments among the 3 members of the Mythos team. They refuse the offer, saying the fragments are his, and it would be too kind of a gesture. But Tae-jun insists they all fought hard and deserve it. Plus, he's already taken enough for himself. With a smile, he comments that boss Ji-hoon was kind enough to give him plenty of fragments. He then announces he will follow his leader's example and share the spoils with Team 3, who celebrate. He hugs Ji-hoon, saying that sharing is caring, but the boss worries about his own share. The other hunters surround Ji-hoon to congratulate him on his generosity and for going to help them. Aryam Hong thanks both hunters, Tae-jun and Ji-hoon, immensely as they distribute the crystals. Ji-hoon can only force a smile at the whole situation. In the distance, Aryam Hong watches Tae-jun with a look of admiration. Addie Min is surprised by Tae-jun's attitude, but he tells her to be quiet and says he's working on his reputation. The scene shifts to a dark castle under the light of a full moon. Someone holds the recovered relics and announces their return. A lord gives his thanks and says that, thanks to them, life will return to the land, while Aryam Hong asks where they should consecrate them. He then instructs for the relics to be brought to him, as the lord of the land must be the one to consecrate them. Aryam Hong holds the artifacts in her hands, hesitant. The hunter asks to ask his grace a question, and he allows it. She recalls that when they received the mission, they were told invaders had taken the relics. Aryam continues, explaining that this unleashed a great evil that killed the people and even the invaders before they could escape. From his throne, the Lord confirms the story is true. The young woman then asks him how he managed to survive. He remains silent for a moment with a thoughtful expression. The Lord lets out a laugh and comments that most travelers wouldn't have noticed as he begins to levitate. The relics in Aryam's hand begin to react, and he says it's already too late for them. He reveals that he had already begun to recover his powers since they brought the relics back. A system window reveals the Lord's true identity as the hidden boss, the high-ranking vampire, Duke Duas. Aryam Hong realizes something is wrong. A dungeon of this size should have a boss, but they didn't find one. She wonders how the mission could have been as simple as just retrieving the relics. The hunter then deduces that it was a duel mission, which would only be revealed after returning the relics to the Duke. Back in the present, Tae-jin finally understands that this was the duel mission. He can't believe that Lord was actually the final boss of the dungeon. Duke Duas demands they hand over the relics so he can partake in his glorious rebirth. Under the vampire's control, Aryam Hong begins to walk toward him to hand over the artifacts. Tae-jin tries to stop her, asking what she's doing, but another hunter intercepts him midway, blocking his path. He holds him tightly, preventing him from moving forward. Tae-jin wonders when the mind control started, as a system window displays the devil's hypnosis skill. Then he realizes that the passive effect of his ability made him the only one immune to the control. The Duke questions him why his mind doesn't bow before his absolute authority. With a smile, Tae-jin replies that he's not interested in him, the old, wrinkly vampire. Tae-jin suggests the Duke go look for grandmas in the park, and he calls the boy insolent. But he states that it doesn't matter, because with the relics recovered, he will soon regain his immortality. The Duke then orders his loyal servants to tear the fool to pieces. Addie Min desperately asks what they're going to do, and Tae-jin realizes the mess they're in. The vampire scoffs at him, saying that despite his strength, he's just a mortal attached to his friends. He then condemns him to a tragic end at the hands of his precious companions. Taijin prepares to use a secret technique. He charges forward and hits one of the hunters in the face. Next, he leaps up and strikes Ji-hoon with a downward blow. The Duke is incredulous at the scene. Taijin turns to a staggering Ji-hoon and says he has one more punch saved up, and with a final punch, he knocks him to the ground. He turns to the vampire and asks if he underestimated him, claiming it's a piece of cake to knock them out without a scratch. With a smile, Taijin says the Duke didn't imagine his physical skills could match his magic. The Duke leans on the altar, realizing his powers haven't fully returned yet. The Duke orders Arayam Hong to protect him until his powers recover and to attack Taijin without hesitation. She rushes forward and unleashes a sword strike against him. Taijin realizes that Arayam is definitely not an easy opponent after taking a cut. He then notices she's too fast for him to land a blow on her. He considers using one of his techniques, but hesitates, as he might seriously injure her. In the background, the Duke begins to laugh, stating that he now understands the situation. Her sword stops inches from Taijin's chest, and the vampire declares that the two must be in love. He delights in the stage set for the perfect tragedy, a cruel fate to die at the hands of a loved one. Taijin wonders what the vampire is talking about, while Addie Min points at the girl. Arayam Hong's movements have suddenly stopped, and she remains motionless. He questions what's happening and if the hypnosis weakened for a second. The Duke calls her a fool and orders her to kill him right now. Taijin then realizes she must have reacted to what the vampire said. He hypothesizes that the hypnosis weakens when the target becomes emotionally shaken and decides he has to try something. He calls out to her and says that although the timing is weird, there's something he's wanted to tell her for a long time. Taijin reminds her of last Christmas when she gave him a wallet, saying a man needed one to make money. He then continues to talk about that specific wallet, and he confesses that he actually sold it online. Arayam Hong remains silent as he apologizes, explaining he was broke and didn't want to do it. He celebrates the fact that she's angry, as it will keep her immobilized for a few seconds. Taijin then turns to the Duke and yells that he'll pay for what he did to his friends and will never use that skill again. He prepares a Taijin-style spell break technique, and he attacks the vampire directly in the eyes. The Duke screams in pain and demands to know what Taijin is doing. With a smile, Taijin replies that there's nothing he can do. Boomer! He declares he'll continue the attack until he's dead, while the system collects data and analyzes the skill's formula. A system notification then announces that Devil's hypnosis has been cancelled. Taijin removes his hand from the vampire's eyes. He asks the Duke how he feels, and the vampire questions what that mortal did to his eyes. The Duke despairs as he sees the other hunters waking up from the mind control. The hunters feel dizzy and confused, while the Duke wonders if he really broke his hold over them. The vampire turns to Taijin and asks how he did it. He claims no one has ever broken his control over his servants unless his mana ran out. The Duke then demands the mortal answer how he nullified his spell. Taijin simply says it doesn't matter, since he's going to die soon anyway. He suggests that if the Duke is curious, he can look it up online, but then remembers he won't be able to use a computer in his grave. The vampire declares that's enough mockery, and that his arrogance won't last long, as he will be the one to perish. With a shout, the Duke charges toward him, promising to wipe that smile off his face. Taijin calls the Duke annoying and prepares to shut him up, but Arayam Hong steps in front of him. With a swift movement, she intercepts the vampire's attack, protecting her comrade. Taijin asks if she's okay, and the hunter confirms, thanking him for keeping the enemy busy. She then brandishes her sword and says they can handle it from here. Arayam Hong warns everyone that the Duke can no longer use his mental attacks. The hunters rally together, declaring they will combine their powers to defeat the vampire. The Duke is enraged that mortals dare to raise their fists against him, while Taijin mocks his words. He then wishes the vampire to enjoy the beating he's getting from those he despises so much. One of the hunters apologizes for the delay and points his weapon in Taijin's direction. Then he reveals his real target was the Duke, promising he won't be a burden. Two other hunters take their positions and ask Taijin to let them handle the enemy. One of them attacks the Duke from behind, while Arayam Hong charges from the front. The vampire realizes their movements are so coordinated, it's as if they can read each other's mind. Arayam Hong focuses her power into her blade, preparing for a decisive strike. She then unleashes her final blow against the Duke. The smoke from the attack slowly dissipates, revealing the enemy's silhouette. One of the hunters asks hopefully if they manage to defeat him. Taijin then declares it's his turn to step in and finish the job. He launches his secret technique, the 100% fireball at the opponent. With his finger still smoking, He says you have to be relentless until the job is done. Areum Hong comments that it was a close call as the Duke's body disappears. She says she knew something was off with the Duke, and another hunter mentions that when he woke up, he saw Taejin attacking his eyes. He praises Taejin for figuring out the strategy, but the young man replies it was nothing. Taejin asks if anyone remembers anything specific from when they were hypnotized, but they deny it. He plays it off, saying it's nothing, relieved that he won't have to get a beating from her. One of the hunters announces the gate is open and suggests they go back for some barbecue. Everyone agrees excitedly, but Aryam notices that the hunter Ji-hoon is nowhere to be seen. Ji-hoon is lying on the ground, unconscious and injured. Aryam then asks Taejin for an explanation of what happened, but he pretends to know nothing. Someone says the injury isn't serious and that he'll recover, so the group decides to go eat, carrying their unconscious comrade. One of the hunters invites Taejin to celebrate with the group, but he politely declines, saying he has something to do. Aryam Hong asks what his plans are, and he denies having a date with someone else. Taejin explains that he's never seen a dungeon layout like this before, and wants to stay to analyze it in detail. He then adds that this can be considered part of his training. The other hunters praise him for his dedication as they prepare to leave. Aryam Hong comments that he's always so full of passion. She approaches and says he still has the old habit of staying behind to study the maps, something she always respected. The hunter then touches his face. She asks him not to overdo it. Taejin stammers a confirmation. Aram says goodbye and asks him to let them know when he's done, and he tells them not to drink too much. After the group leaves, Addie Min asks what he's really going to do there. She says that knowing him, he wouldn't just stay to study the dungeon, and Taejin admits she knows him very well. He explains that he really used to do that a while ago, when he was struggling to survive and had to do whatever it took, but this time is different. He noticed something with his navigation and shows Addie what he found. Taejin shows the screen to Addie and asks if that isn't a sign of an incredible treasure. With a smile, he says he can't help but check it out and that he needs to go on. Addie questions if he really used to study dungeons, and he confirms he was the master of hard work. They arrive at a library, and Taejin continues to follow the navigation. Addie comments that she didn't notice anything suspicious, but he insists the treasure should be around here. Then he remembers mystery movies and pulls a specific book from the shelf. The bookshelf moves to the side, and Taejin celebrates the find. A secret passage is revealed, and he tells Addie there's definitely a treasure in there. He prepares to enter the passage, but she tells him to wait. A trap is activated and throws him backward. Spikes shoot out from the floor, and he remarks that he almost became a shish kebab, while Addie explains that the navigation showed many traps. She shows him that the problem is the exact location isn't appearing on the screen. Taejin agrees that this is a small problem. He then decides this is a good opportunity to test something. He summons a staff with a skull on top, the Iratus. Taejin raises the staff and amidst a summoning circle, calls out Iratus's name. Addie is surprised by the name, while Taejin wears a malicious grin. From the magic circle, a dark form begins to materialize, leaving Addie astonished. The creature reveals itself, and a voice asks who called its name. Then, a skeleton introduces himself as Iratus, the Seeker of Death, who has come from the end of the world to answer his call. Iratus approaches Taejin, who greets him casually. The skeleton then asks if he used the staff to summon him. Taejin confirms with enthusiasm, saying the staff is amazing, but Iratus accuses him of lying, explaining that the staff is cursed and that evil spirits should have devoured him. He then cheerfully replies that he killed the so-called cursed apparition. Iratus is left speechless, but admits that thing was pretty annoying. Taejin then points the staff at him and questions his tone. Next, he hits him on the head, demanding more respect for his master. He says the skeleton doesn't need to know how he was summoned, but threatens him if he speaks that way again. And Iratus agrees. Taejin asks about the funny way he spoke before, but Iratus pretends not to know what he's talking about. Taejin states it doesn't matter as long as he obeys, and then gives Iratus his first order. He grabs him by the arm and orders him to charge straight ahead. Iratus hesitates, saying he can't see anything, but Taejin scolds him for talking back after receiving an order. With a dark expression, he warns that his master is about to be very disappointed. The skeleton then apologizes and hurries down the corridor. He turns for a moment, glancing to the side. Then, Iratus is completely crushed by a trap, and the system announces he has been unsummoned. Taejin simply comments that a trap has been disabled, while the navigation updates the map. He summons the skeleton again, who reappears, confused about what just happened. Taejin yells for him to charge forward once more. The skeleton is then engulfed in flames in the middle of the hallway. Reduced to ashes, the system unsummons him again, and Taejin remarks that it was an interesting trap. Addie questions him, concerned, asking if he's going to keep checking every trap location this way. With a smile, he asks if there's a problem. He introduces himself as Taejin Lee and states that he shows no mercy to those who tried to kill him. Addie just comments that she understands the situation. Taejin then orders Iratus to advance like a wrecking ball, and the skeleton obeys with hesitation. After disabling the last trap, Taijin praises him for the excellent work. He states that his servant will be remembered as a great trap detector, but Iratus reminds him that he isn't dead yet. A system window informs him that due to repeated deaths, the skeleton has evolved, and its overall durability has increased. Taijin then realizes that, at some point, the traps were no longer killing him instantly. He reflects that most summons don't get stronger by dying, and wonders if this is also an effect of his own growth. Iratus, noticing he seems more impressive, suggests that maybe he'd like to reward him, but Taijin ignores him and decides that after exploring the area, he'll thoroughly investigate the mechanics of his ability. The skeleton indignantly asks if he's just going to leave like that, without even a simple thank you. While Iratus complains about the violation of his rights, Taijin simply summons the staff and asks who cares. He then unsummons the skeleton, who vanishes into thin air. Taijin continues the search, and Addie calls him heartless. Addie notes there are no more traps or other paths, which means this must be the final area. She then asks if anything catches his eye as he surveys the place. Taijin points to a tombstone and comments that they aren't usually this large. He approaches and touches it, questioning why it would take up so much space unless something was hidden there. Symbols on the stone light up, surprising them both. The tombstone opens, revealing a statue holding a box with a bracelet inside. Addie identifies the item as a bracelet, and Taijin confirms it was made with the relics they found. He realizes he might need an expert to identify the item, which could be expensive. Taijin then starts hoping it's the most powerful item the world has ever seen. Addie interrupts him, saying he doesn't need to take every item he finds to an expert. She introduces the Item Scan app, which can quickly identify and analyze any item. He gets annoyed and asks why he's only hearing about this now. She reminds him that she told him she had installed several apps, and he apologizes for not checking before. Taijin asks if the app will analyze the item automatically, and the scan begins. The analysis reveals the item as the Relic of Great Evil, an exclusive grade bracelet that grants bonuses to all stats and passive skills. Taijin is stunned by the item's exclusive grade, and Addie suggests they check the skills as well. The skills are Vampire's Grace, which heals wounds quickly, and Vampire's Charm, which allows control over incapacitated prey. Taijin celebrates the new acquisition, and Addie notes that the active skill is similar to the one the Duke used, but she questions if he'll actually use the skill, since it's only effective against weakened humans. With a smile, Taijin replies that he can use it in many situations. He then tells Addie that there are billions of people in the world, and she expresses her concern about him using the ability on others. Taijin explains that she must not know much about how society works. He claims that people are scarier than dungeon monsters, as a figure spies on them. The target is confirmed as a newly promoted B-rank hunter. A voice informs him that his concealment skill will be enough to take him down alone, and he prepares for the attack. Taijin finds it strange, as the target should be right there, while the assassin approaches from behind. The hunter, Taijin Lee, a former D-rank loser, suddenly passed the B-rank exam with the highest scores. The assassin then concludes that if there's a reason for his death, it's because he stood out too much, and he moves in to strike, telling him not to hold a grudge even if he dies here. Taijin attacks backward with a single blow, striking the enemy and wondering if the navigation is broken. The attacker retreats, questioning how he was noticed, but Taijin tells Addie he just tripped on something. The report didn't mention any detection skills, and Taijin wonders if the enemy has an invisibility skill. He then starts calling out, telling the enemy to show himself wherever he is, and he threatens him, saying that if he doesn't come out, he will beat him to death. Taijin Lee charges forward, chainsaw in hand, and attacks one of the men. Then, he unleashes a flurry of blows on his opponent. The man begs for his life, but Taijin says he hasn't even started yet. He complains that kids these days are so soft. Next, Taijin grabs him and demands to know who he is and where he came from. The man introduces himself as Zhongcheol Han from the Red Hounds Guild. Taijin finds the name familiar. Then, he remembers they are a group of criminals paid to assassinate hunters. He asks what kind of business a criminal would have with him, and Zhongcheol claims he was just following orders. Taijin calls him shameless for thinking he's innocent just because he's a pawn. He warns that he's going to ask some questions, and that he'd better answer as best he can. Then, he activates Vampire's Charm to control Zhongcheol's mind. A scream echoes from inside a castle. Outside, two men wonder why Zhongcheol is taking so long. One of them, Zhongpil Han, comments that it shouldn't take this long to eliminate a B-rank hunter. Zhongpil says that next time he should remember to do the job himself, but his companion tells him not to be so hard on the kid. Sitting down, Yongseo Han adds that he's still an inexperienced rookie, which is why he's not very efficient. Zhongpil then remarks that hopefully, more experience will get him to their level one day, only to get beaten. At that moment, Taijun appears, dragging Zhongchul, and questions the brothers about the kind of dirty work they've chosen to do. He states that their late mother and father would turn in their graves if they knew what the three of them were up to. Jong-pil asks how he found out about them, and Taijin confirms he interrogated their younger brother, but he didn't know who ordered the hit. Mockingly, he says he came here to rip the information out of the two of them. Jong-pil calls Jong-chil a disgrace, but Taijin tells him to stop. He argues that his younger brother is a professional with years of training and wouldn't have given in so easily. The man then accuses Taijin of using a mind corruption technique, and the young man praises the trust they have in each other. Taijin offers a special thumbs up for the two of them. Jong-seo asks if he's mocking them. Jong-pil admits his mistake was not coming after Taijin from the start. He then readies his weapon and swears that Taijin Lee will not leave this place alive. With disdain, Taijin just replies, "Sure, whatever you say." Jong-pil prepares to use his special assassination move, which he has perfected for years. But before he can finish, he's hit by a punch. He falls to the ground, and Taijin tells him to stop talking and just fight. Taijin turns to Yong-seo and warns that he's running low on mana. Then, he threatens him, saying he'd better tell him everything if he doesn't want to end up like his older brother. At the Hunter Association's headquarters, the members of the Red Hounds, Yong-pil Han and his brothers, were quickly apprehended. From the beginning, they had obtained information about the dungeon Taijun was heading to and formulated a plan. They disguised themselves as the dungeon's cleaning crew and waited for Taijin to come out. But when everyone except him had left, they decided to go in and kill him. Yeonhwa Seo admits she let her guard down. In the Blue Lotus meeting room, she explains that she already knew there were people targeting Taijin, especially after the exam manipulation incident, and had even asked the association headquarters to take proper precautions. She never imagined the attackers would disguise themselves to infiltrate a Mythos-owned dungeon. Yeonhwa blames herself, saying it's all her fault, and that she should have been more meticulous, but Taijin tells her not to say that, as she's not the one responsible. He reveals that he actually expected someone to come after him, he just didn't think it would be so soon. Taepyeong-ma rages at these filthy worms who went after Gaeon and Saren, and are now trying to harm Taijin as well. He declares he's going to the association headquarters, and won't stop until they reveal the bastard who hired the assassins. But Taijin reassures him, saying there's no need for that. Taijin announces that he's found out who the client is. Yeonhwa Seo questions if he found out on his own, and if they really talked that easily, and he confirms. So she asks who it is. She wants to know who the miserable scum is that went after the lives of hunters Gaeon Kang, Saren Yu, and Taijin Lee. Taijin prepares to answer. He reveals it was Hyunsu Bae, the guild master of Death Phantom. Taepyeong-ma and Yeonhwa react with surprise. He calls him a scumbag bandit and says he's not surprised. For the past 2 years, they've rapidly climbed the national guild rankings, going from 30th to 7th place using ruthless and unfair means. Taijin states there have always been suspicions, but no definitive proof until now, and that he has provided a breakthrough once again. Yeonhwa says there's no doubt if Hunter Taijin is saying so. She declares she will go there personally with her best guild members, and that they will pay for what they tried to do to her precious Hunter Saren. Taepyeong adds that he will also teach that bastard a lesson for trying to kill his beloved disciple. He calls for them to march on their headquarters, but Taijin excuses himself and asks if he can join them. He says he'd like to get a good look at the face of the man who came after his life. At the Death Phantom HQ, Taepyeong-ma arrives, calling Hyunsu a moron. He says he hasn't seen him in a while, and tells him to come out from wherever he is. Then he stomps his foot on the ground, and demands that Hyunsu show his annoying face now. Some men run towards him and ask what he thinks he's doing. Yeonhwa Seo approaches, and asks why they don't just call their guild master. She orders them to summon the useless Hyunsu Bai immediately. Yeonhwa warns them that if they don't, they can say goodbye to their headquarters building. 2 guild members question if she's completely lost her mind. She then turns to her team and says it's time to play, and they agree. The building starts to be attacked from the outside. A man bangs on a vault door, calling for Master Bei. He reports that they are under siege by the Blue Lotus and Hwarang guild masters, but Hyunsu tells him to shut up. Hyunsu curses the situation, saying he should have never hired those idiots. He wonders when it all went wrong, and blames that bastard Taijin Lee. As he decides to take the money and run, the wall behind him explodes. Hyunsu turns around, startled by the explosion, asking what that was. From the hole in the wall, a voice reveals that he found him hiding and asks if he's surprised. He stammers as he recognizes the intruder, who confirms his identity. Then, Taijun Lee appears in the hole, introducing himself as the B-rank hunter Hyunsu was looking for. Lying on the floor, Hyunsu asks how Taijin Lee got there, and he replies that he simply walked in. Taijin steps through the door and says he's very good at finding people. Hyunsu questions what he wants, since he must have come alone for a reason. He then opens a briefcase full of money and offers to pay much more than that, if that's what he desires. Taijin is impressed by the amount, but a small creature tells him to get a grip. He He wipes his mouth and says that while the offer isn't bad, he's not greedy for dirty money. Taejin takes a step forward, making Hyunsu back away. He says he only came to check something about the B-rank exam manipulation case and asks if Hyunsu was the only one behind it. Hyunsu looks confused, but Taejin warns him that he's already done his research and that he'd better be honest. Annoyed, he calls him a brat and claims the idea to hijack the exam was his alone and that he prepared it himself. Taejin realizes he refuses to give in. So he says he'll have to beat Hyunsu up before handing him over to the association. Hyunsu calls him a mule and asks who he thinks he's talking to. A dark aura forms around Hyunsu, and he asks Taejin if he thinks he's some big shot now. Hyunsu declares that his concern is the two enraged guild masters coming after him, not a D-rank lackey like Taejin. Taejin recognizes the skill as dark matter, and Hyunsu asks if he's feeling more cooperative now. He then says things wouldn't have come to this if Taejin had just accepted his offer. Taejin wonders aloud if he should have accepted, and his companion questions if he's kidding. He notes that if it really is a dark matter skill, that changes everything, as it's an S-rank ability with no weaknesses in attack or defense. These dark masses absorb all surrounding energy except the casters, making ranged and melee attacks useless. Hyunsu tells him to stay in the corner if he doesn't want to die, and Taejin thinks it would normally be wise to avoid this fight. But he tells Hyunsu to cut the crap, stating that the ability isn't even real. Hyunsu scoffs at him, saying a measly fireball can't compete with his dark matter, but Taejin asks if he seems that naive. He states that Hyunsu might fool an ordinary hunter, but he can't fool his eyes and activates his QR reader. Then, Taejin charges forward to see if his theory works. The scan reveals Hyunsu's ability is a projection that consumes mana to project the form of other skills with only 10% of the original power. Hyunsu tries to stop him, saying they should talk. Taejin hits him with his skill. Struck. Hyunsu screams. Hyunsu yells that he's on fire and calls for help, while Taejin Lee watches him in disbelief. He wonders how a guild master can be so weak, since he even threw a weak attack on purpose. Someone throws a fish tank at him, telling him to stop flailing around, as that wouldn't kill him. Taejin says that's enough talk between them. Then, he moves in to make him spill the beans. Outside, Tae Pyong-ma praises Taejin for capturing Hyunsu Bay all by himself. He congratulates him, stating he's 100 times better than the useless folks at the association. But the young man thanks him and Master Seo for their help. Tae Pyong-ma agrees with the compliment, leaving Taejin embarrassed. He boasts that if he hadn't gone easy, he could have blown up the entire building, and Taejin, sitting, agrees that he's truly amazing. Taejin asks about Yeonhwa Seo, and Tae Pyong-ma explains that she went to get evidence from the guildmaster's office. At that moment, a portal opens, and Tae Pyong-ma comments they were just talking about her. Yeonhwa confirms to Tae Pyong that she found documents detailing the exam sabotage operation. She reveals that some high-ranking officials from the exam administration department were involved, but have already fled abroad, and he calls them bastard. Questioned by Tae Pyong, she states the incident seems to have been orchestrated entirely by the Death Phantom Guildmaster and corrupt officials. He laments that there will always be scum after money, and wonders how they could accept a bribe from such a horrible person, making Taejun cringe. Tae Pyong-ma squeezes Hyunsu's face and accuses him of being the main problem, thinking money could solve everything. He decides he can't hand him over to the association like this and drags him off to teach him a lesson first. Yeonhwa Seo thanks Taejun, saying she heard he personally defeated and captured Hyunsu in his secret basement. She comments that he helped them to the very end, but Taejun states he did it all for himself. He wanted to be the one to expose whoever else was behind all this. Yeonhwa asks what he means by whoever else, and Taejin explains that he doesn't believe the exam tampering was Hyunsu's work alone. The undead necromancer, the dark magic, and the hiring of assassins indicate he couldn't have done it all by himself. Taejin argues that some hidden forces must be helping Hyunsu from the shadows, and that he wanted to capture everyone involved. He then declares with conviction that evil deeds must be met with justice. Yeonhwa is surprised to see that someone like him has such a strong sense of justice. She steps closer and asks if he found anything about Bei's accomplices. Taejin stares at her in silence for a moment. Sitting in a dark room, he reveals there was no one. A news report states that the Death Phantom Guildmaster, Hyunsu Bei, confessed to tampering with the B-rank exam, and someone calls him a fool. Youngmin Go, master of the Radiant Wraiths Guild, slams the table and questions why he had to send assassins instead of just lying low. Youngmin Go despairs, stating he can't get caught up in this mess. He reassures himself, remembering they only signed a contract with a sealing spell, but someone knocks on the door. Nervous, he allows them in. His guild vice master, Young-tae-jo, enters and announces that someone is waiting for him. Young-tae informs him the person is in the lobby, and Youngmin asks if it's someone from Blue Lotus or Hwarang. He denies it, explaining the visitor was wearing a mask, but he adds that the person said Youngmin would know the words flying fly. Youngmin orders him to let them in immediately, wondering if Hyunsu-bae spilled everything. He doubts a simple interrogation could have revealed the details of their deal as the visitor enters. The man removes his mask, revealing himself to be Taejin Lee. Young-tae recognizes him as the hunter from the B-rank exam and questions what he's doing there. Youngmin quickly welcomes the popular hunter Taejin Lee. He offers a seat, wondering if Taejin will blackmail him using his deal with Hyunsu. Suddenly, Taejin starts laughing uncontrollably. Then he collapses on the floor, convulsing, leaving Youngmin and Young-tae perplexed about what's wrong with him. Youngmin yells for Young-tae not to just stand there. He desperately orders his subordinate to stop him. Taejin moves quickly around the room, spinning on the floor. His companion questions what's wrong with him, and if he's truly gone mad. He continues laughing upside down. Youngmin orders Young-tae to stop him right now. Young-tae launches an attack, questioning how he dares to invade someone's HQ and act like a lunatic. The attack hits him head-on, and his companion screams his name. The smoke from the impact slowly clears. Young-tae emerges, holding Taejin by the foot, and praises him as the de facto leader of the Radiant Wraiths. He comments on the impressive physical strength and keen instinct for choosing the right skill in the heat of the moment. Trapped, Taejin states that's more than enough for an entrance test. He then frees himself and lands on the floor to introduce himself formally. He announces himself as Taejin Lee, a B-rank freelance hunter. Youngmin questions what he means by an entrance test, and Taejin explains he needs to know the level of the guild he's going to join. He points at them and says he was simply testing how they would react. Youngmin concludes that he's completely insane. Young-tae-jo glares at Taejin, finding the entrance test ridiculous. He tells the kid to stop the nonsense and asks if he even knows where he is. Young-tae pokes him, saying, "This isn't a place where some trash who can't even use necromancy can just waltz in and out." With a smile, Taejin comments that with all this talk of necromancy, it's no wonder the guild is a joke these days. He then asks what the legacy of the Radiant Wraiths is, mentioning how the founder, Jeonho Go, built the guild with his blood magic. His work changed public opinion on dark magic and necromancy, leading the guild to become one of the 5 greats. But Taejin questions their current situation. He states that ever since the first master retired, they've been on the verge of bankruptcy. Taejin pats Young-tae's shoulder, saying now is not the time to be picky, and that when life gives you lemons, you make the best lemonade. He leaps onto Youngmin-go's desk, declaring he's the biggest lemon there is, and that with him, the guild will surely be revitalized. Youngmin stammers, but Taejin cuts him off, saying he forgot one thing. He then hands a paper to the guild master. Taejin suggests that maybe this will convince him. Upon reading the document, Youngmin is terrified. Taejin asks what's wrong, and the man, trembling, denies any problem with a forced laugh. Youngmin realizes that this bastard knows everything. Youngmin Go is terrified as he realizes the document contains proof of the contract, from the relic used to sabotage the exam to the deal with Hyunsu-bae. Sitting at his desk, Taejin asks if he feels more cooperative now. He then presents a new contract and asks the guildmaster, Youngmin Go, to sign it. Young-tae-jo slams the table and calls the situation absurd. He questions Youngmin on how he could let a weakling with no necromancy into the guild. Youngmin tries to calm Young-tae down, asking him to take it easy. He explains that Taejin Lee is strange but ridiculously powerful, and he'll be a great addition to the guild. Young-tae doubts it, stating he just wants to take advantage of them. He then points at Youngmin and tells him to make sure Taejin learns necromancy. Young-tae threatens to make him regret joining during the initiation. The scene shifts to a panoramic view of the city. Taejun is sitting at a table outside, relaxing. His companion comments on the sunlight and the aroma of coffee, and he savors the moment. She reminds him he was recently targeted by assassins and should be more cautious. Taejin reassures her, saying he isn't relaxing without a plan. Taejin reveals an item he took from the Red Hounds, a ring that explains how they managed to attempt the assassination without getting caught. As soon as he puts it on, he looks like a completely different person, something most people wouldn't be able to notice. The item is revealed to be the Ring of the Shadow Hound, an A-rank artifact that alters the user's appearance. His companion is excited, as now he can relax a bit without worries, and Taejin agrees he needs to enjoy it. Then she questions him about why he decided to join the Radiant Wraiths, since there were excellent guilds like Blue Lotus, Hwarang, and Mythos. He explains that while they are good, they come with a lot of baggage. He would have to participate in international missions regularly, and also attend political events when summoned by higher-ups, which he considers a hassle. The Radiant Wraiths, however, are only 22nd in the power rankings, allowing him to grab as many mana fragments as he wants without worrying about the top dogs. To top it all off, he has complete control over the terms of his contract, much to Young Min Go's despair. His companion asks what his plan is now, but Taijin isn't sure and suggests they could go shopping. The idea surprises her, and he asks if the suggestion was too random for her. She didn't think shopping was the kind of thing he would do, but he argues there's no point in saving money if you're never going to use it. They arrive at a huge building, and Taijin comments on how the place's extravagance always impresses him. He says he never imagined he'd come to a place like this, while his companion notes they can build pretty big buildings on Earth too. Taijin's companion asks what this place is, as it doesn't look like a regular mall, and he offers to explain. He introduces it as the largest exclusive hunter market in the country, known to all ranks. The place is restocked every week with new items and rare equipment never seen before. Taijin calls it the greatest shopping mall for hunters, a true treasure trove, and his partner applauds him. As he prepares to check out the latest treasures, someone calls his name. A young woman approaches, confirming it's really him and commenting that the interesting item he was wearing almost kept her from recognizing him. She says she's only heard about him through her older brother, and that it's a pleasure to meet him in person, but Taijin asks who she is. The young woman then introduces herself as Yeren Cha, the guild master of Mythos. Taijin is embarrassed to realize she's Su-yeon Cha's younger sister. He wonders what the Mythos guild master would be doing in a place like this, and she asks if he didn't know. Yeren reveals that she is, in fact, the owner of this mall and comes every week to inspect the new arrivals. Taijin is shocked to discover the biggest mall belonged to Mythos and laments not having joined them. He apologizes for not recognizing her, but she says it's all right, as she prefers to stay out of the spotlight. Yeren then asks if Mr. Taijin is free at the moment. She mentions that she heard about what he did in the Cursed Land mission through her brother and Seana. Yeren Cha explains that, according to them, if it weren't for Taijun's heroic actions, they would have not only failed the mission, but also put their lives in danger. So, she says that if he's agreeable, she would like to return the favor right then and there. Taijin thanks her for the kind words, but states he didn't do it to earn favors. She understands and decides not to insist, since that's his wish. However, she asks if he's sure about his decision. Yeren then reveals she was going to offer him an item of his choice from their mall. To top it off, she specifies it would be an item exclusive to VIPs. Yeren Cha says that if he refuses, there's not much she can do, leaving Taijin shocked at the idea of a free, exclusive VIP item. When she turns to leave, he calls out to her and asks for a moment. Taijin then asks if he can at least take a look at the available products. In the elevator, Yeren comments that he's much more ordinary than she imagined. He questions what she means, and the young woman explains that she thought he'd have more of a presence. She says she was expecting some kind of incredible aura, based on everything she's heard about him so far. Taijin apologizes for disappointing her, but Yeren assures him that wasn't her intention to offend him. She states that she likes him more precisely because he's so ordinary. Then, she adds that she doesn't think Seon-ah would approve of her saying that, leaving him confused. The elevator doors open, and Yeren announces they've arrived at the restricted access area for VIP clients. She says that today, he can use it too, and invites him to look around as much as he wants. Taijin and his companion are amazed as they see the exclusive VIP area of the hunter's treasure trove. He is astonished by the value of everything, realizing that each of the items costs millions. Taijin reflects on what an extraordinary woman Yeren is for owning all these items. She asks if he likes it, and if he found anything to his taste, but he replies that it's hard to choose with so many incredible things. He says one thing caught his eye from the beginning. Then, he points to a display case and asks what those items are. Yeren comments that he has an interesting taste. She explains that the items on display belong to the founding guild masters of Mythos, Hwarang, and Blue Lotus, who became legends. Yeren clarifies that although the items are too old to be used, they keep them preserved as part of the history of their great deeds. She regrets that the items aren't for sale, and suggests he look at others, as he's sure to find something much better. A man approaches and announces to Master Cha that the Vice Master of the Sage's Eye Guild has arrived. Yeren looks at her watch and realizes she's lost track of time. She apologizes to Mr. Taijin, explaining she has an important meeting, but she will meet him in her office later. While his companion warns him about hurting his back, he replies that sometimes you just have to conform to social norm. Back at the display case, she questions why something like that caught his attention amidst so many other incredible items. The item information for Broken Gauntlets of the Dragon's Claw shows its durability is 0, and even she realizes it's unusable. Taijin agrees, but states he can see some extra information. An information window reveals the item has synergistic effects with the Rising Dragon Fist skills, something impossible to ignore. Then, an explosive growth mission is activated, offering to unlock a feature of the status window as a reward for acquiring a synergistic item. Taijun realizes the explosive growth system never gives him a mission that's impossible to complete. He has always received missions that were within his ability to accomplish. This means there must be a way to repair the item's durability. So, he desperately begs Master Cha, saying he'll do anything to have the item. He even offers to get on all fours and bark if she wants. Lying on the floor, he wonders how he can convince her, until he hears a raised voice coming from another room. Someone complains that the deal was already settled and that additional fees were deposited. Taijin sees Yerin Cha in an argument and wonders if she's in a tough spot. Suddenly, he gets an idea. He figures this could be a great chance to make her owe him a favor. Without a second thought, Taijun runs toward the confrontation to help her. He announces that he, Taijin Li, will rescue her. Yerin tells the men they have disappointed her repeatedly and questions if this is how they intend to continue doing business. But Yongseok Kang, the vice master of the Sage's Eye Guild, claims her criticism is unjustified, as they only price the items according to their own criteria. He then asks if it's not the basics of business to receive fair compensation for the merchandise. Yerin Cha says that's ridiculous, and that she won't let it slide, but Taijun asks if something is wrong. He runs into the room and explains he came as fast as he could when he heard the loud noises. Taijun turns to Yongseok Kang and, not knowing who he is, asks him to leave. The man replies that they are in the middle of an important negotiation. Yerin tries to tell Taijun she's busy, but he interrupts her, showing interest in the business. He approaches a chair and comments that he loves business, as it's much better than flying economy class. Then he sits down and invites everyone to talk it over. Yongseok Kang asks Master Cha who this man is, but she hesitates to answer. He looks at the items on the table and understands the situation. The Sage's Eye Guild specializes in item appraisal and dominates the sector in Korea. This means Mythos is forced to accept their demands, even if they violate contracts, for lack of alternative. Taijin apologizes for the late introduction and presents himself as Master Cha's legal counsel. With a smile, he asks what the problem of the day seems to be. Yerin tries to intervene, but Yongseok Kang comments that his presence should make negotiations easier. He explains that Master Cha requested the appraisal of all items in a single day, but the large quantity will take at least a week. Yongseok Kang explains they'll need more manpower, which incurs additional fees, as what has been paid so far is not enough. He states that with all these items, he will need at least double what Ms. Cha deposited, leaving her surprised. Taijin finds the situation peculiar. He questions if Sage's Eye isn't the expert in item appraisal, and Yongseok Kang confirms. Then, Taijin provokes him, asking how such a renowned guild would take a whole week to handle such a small quantity of item. He starts laughing, saying that if he were the guild master, he would have already fired Sage's Eye and taken his business elsewhere. Yongseok Kang gets irritated by the comment. He says that if they want to hire another guild, they should go ahead, but warns them that all the items could become completely worthless overnight. The man explains that if the appraisal is not conducted properly by the best in the business, the item will lose all its value. Therefore, instead of taking a risk with an inferior guild, it's much safer to leave the job with them. Yongseok Kang then challenges him, wondering if there's even another guild that does appraisals besides them. Yerin Cha places a hand on Taijun's shoulder and says it's okay, as she knows he's just trying to help. He apologizes for meddling, lamenting that his good intentions ended up hurting the business between the two guilds. Taijin says his goodbyes, and Yongseok Kang comments that he thinks the man got the message. As he turns to Yerin and suggests they proceed and sign the contract, a voice interrupts him. The two turn around, surprised. Taijin reappears at the door and introduces himself as their newly appointed item appraisal specialist, eager to get to work. Yerin Cha and an older man formally greet the newcomer. Then, Taijin Li introduces himself as the new item appraisal specialist, looking forward to working with them. The young woman questions what he suddenly meant, while Taijin observes the items he has to examine. He assures Yerin Cha that she doesn't need to worry, as it won't even take an hour. Taijin then announces they should begin, leaving her confused, but he asks the other appraiser to please leave the room, claiming it's confidential information. The older man reacts by telling him not to make him laugh. He continues, questioning if Taijun is a real lawyer, and warns him that if he interferes with their business, he could be charged with fraud. He advises him to stop the foolishness and go home. The man's subordinates agree that the 1-hour claim is laughable, while Taijin observes them in silence. He then holds up an item and asks if they would mind taking a look. Taijin explains he became curious about the object, questioning how something so extraordinary could take a whole week to be appraised. He reveals that it only took him 10 seconds to do the appraisal himself, leaving Yerin Cha surprised. He leans over the group and asks if that doesn't make him a pretty good appraiser. Taejin instructs one of the men to check the item and see if it has really been appraised. Taejin grabs the man's wrist, telling him to wait. He squeezes the wrist and asks if no one taught him not to make a bet without being sure. The subordinate asks what he's doing, and Taejin laments having to prove himself this way. So he proposes that if the other really intends to check, he should bet something. The older man simply laughs, finding the proposal hilarious. He agrees to the bet, and Taejin replies that now they're talking. He sets the terms, stating that if Taejin Lee fails to appraise everything in an hour, he loses. But if he succeeds, the loss is his. He then reveals he's willing to bet 1 billion won and asks what Taejin will put on the line. Taejin laughs, commenting that 1 billion is a very bold move. The man asks if he's getting cold feet and suggests he apologize, but Taejin simply accepts the deal. And he even adds that he'll add another 10 billion to the bet. Yerin-cha apologizes and asks if he's gone mad. She asks how he'll appraise everything in an hour and if he even has 10 billion to bet, but he reassures her, saying not to worry because he has a plan. He turns to Yerin-cha and asks her to check if an item has been properly appraised. Yerin-cha is astonished to see the item has indeed been appraised. She asks how he managed, and Taejin replies that he was right. The item scanning function that Min told him about identifies items without the need for appraisal, but he wasn't sure if others could see the information. But now he knows the function can be used to share item information with other people. This means he can get filthy rich as an appraiser. Yerin-cha questions if he really did that on his own, and Taejun confirms. He then informs her that, by the way, he's finished appraising all the items on the table, leaving her shocked. Taejun simply tells her to see for herself. She runs her hand over the equipment on the table. She realizes he's not joking and has identified the levels, functions, and attribute bonuses of all of them. Even the best experts in the country would take hours working on all those items. She wonders how Taejin Lee managed to do it all in a matter of seconds. The older man and his subordinates react, finding the situation impossible. He approaches in disbelief to check, while Taejin asks if his boss is upset about losing all that money. Taejin reminds him of what he said about not making bets without being sure, and he steps closer to give a little tip, hoping the man learns from the experience. The man grabs him, calling him a con man and asking how he dared. He then accuses everyone of being in on it together and refuses to accept the situation. But Yerin-cha intervenes, stating the items were clearly identified and Taejun met the deadline. She presents the contract and demands the deposit of 10 billion won into his account. Taejun then tells the man to stop complaining and send the money. The appraiser falls to his knees, unable to believe what's happening, while his assistants suggest they should leave. He mutters that he must be dreaming, as it's impossible he lost 10 billion in the blink of an eye. Then, he starts laughing, insisting it's a nightmare, while his men try to restrain him and ask him to calm down. Taejin comments that it's a shame and that he should have done more honest business. Yerin-cha thanks him, but points out that the situation is truly unprecedented. She states that with his pace and proficiency, he could easily bankrupt a medium-sized guild overnight. The young woman acknowledges his incredible skills, but still finds it impossible and asks how he did it. Taejun awkwardly replies that it's a trade secret. Taejun then proposes a deal, mentioning the broken and unusable item he asked about earlier. He offers a hint on how he appraised all the items, if she lets him keep the object. Yerin-cha considers the proposal, acknowledging how much he wants those gauntlets even if it's against policy. She finally agrees and says she'll get them ready for him to take home. Sitting at the table, Yerin-cha turns and asks him to tell her now. She presses him to reveal how he did all those appraisals. Taejun just smiles silently for a moment. He begins to say that the secret is as the scene shifts to the exterior of a large building. As he leaves, he thanks Master Cha. Yerin-cha says goodbye, telling him to take care, as Taejun happily walks away with his new item. A man beside her asks if she managed to find anything out. She confirms he told her how he did the appraisals, and the man asks what the secret is. Yerin-cha sighs. She explains that apparently, he hears the voice of the items, and that one needs to truly connect with their heart. The young woman concludes that he never intended to tell her, or that he can't reveal the method for some reason. But she states that he's greatly mistaken if he thinks she'll give up so easily. She then promises herself she will make him a member of Mythos, no matter the cost. Back in his apartment, Taejun celebrates. He holds the broken gauntlets and cheers that he finally got them. Taejun kisses the item and says he'll never let it go, while Min tries to get his attention. She reminds him that although it was a legendary item, it's just scrap metal now. Then asks if there's really a way to fix them. He simply admits he doesn't know the answer, but Taejun is happy to have the item and confident that everything will work out in the end. Then suggests he try posting on the salsa market. She explains that there are users from all sorts of dimensions there, but he hesitates at having to log in again. But Addy informs him that he can actually use the status window to make the post. He then creates a post looking for someone to repair the super legendary Dragon's Claw gauntlets. Together, they watch the screen, hoping the post gets some attention. He says nonchalantly that it's not that urgent when a notification pops up. Taejin then turns to the other equipment he bought, stating that the priority now is them. He spent a little of the money he won and believes that, with this, joining the Radiant Wraiths will be a piece of cake. Addy Min observes the items and comments that they are all holy type. She questions him, since the Radiant Wraiths are a dark magic guild, but Taijin says she only sees one side of the equation. He explains that his initiation will be a necromancy duel, and those items will be necessary to defeat Young Taejo's summons. Addy asks if he can use items in a summoning duel, but Taejin just points out her ignorance once again, and he tells her to just sit back and watch what he'll do. At the Radiant Wraith's headquarters, someone informs him they were waiting for him. A man greets him and asks him to follow, while Taijin apologizes for arriving early. But the man assures him it's no problem, as the duel is already prepared. He explains that the initiation will be a duel against the guild's vice master, Young Taejo, using necromancy power. He adds that many members are eager to see the necromancy he will demonstrate, so they went to great lengths to prepare everything. The man announces they have arrived at an arena where Young Taejo awaits him. They walk through a crowd of bald men, and Addy comments on their appearance. Taejun then understands what's happening. He realizes they want to humiliate him publicly, as they believe a B-rank hunter couldn't possibly use necromancy. He already knew this guy was bad news, but concludes he's even worse than he thought. Addy whispers to Taejun, curious about why no one there has hair, and he explains that all necromancer hunters go bald. He's not sure why, but believes it's a side effect of dark mana, leaving Addy worried about his future. Young Taejo addresses Taejin Lee in the arena, confirming he's finally arrived and knows the rules. He then points and states the rule is simple, they battle with their summons only. Taejin agrees to proceed, so Young Taejo proposes that if he wins, he'll be accepted into the guild under the conditions he specifies. But he raises his hand and continues, speaking of the consequence should he lose. Then, Young Taejo declares that Taejun will serve him for life as a guild member. Taejun observes him and understands his intentions perfectly. He realizes Young Taejo is the de facto leader of the Radiant Wraiths, with total control over the budget and operations. And thanks to that, the guild fails to prosper and continues to fall into ruin because of his tyranny. Taejin then addresses him and says that since he's set his conditions, he will now present his own. He takes a step forward and declares that if he wins the fight, he will take his position as the guild's vice master. He adds that he'll also make him compensate all guild members for the financial damages he's caused, leaving Young Taejo perplexed. With a smile, he asks if that shouldn't liven up the crowd. The crowd starts to comment that the situation will be interesting, but Young Taejo simply dismisses the proposal as absurd. Young Taejo scoffs at the idea of financial damage, raising his staff. He claims to be the main reason the Radiant Wraiths are still standing as he summons an A-rank Death Knight. Then, he challenges Taejin to show what kind of incredible necromancy he has prepared for him. Taejin simply agrees to begin. He raises his staff and calls for Eratus. The crowd watches the summon in surprise, and a fully equipped skeleton warrior appears in the arena. The crowd starts to doubt, questioning what he could do with a mere skeleton, and assuming he was bluffing. Young Taejo laughs at the summon, asking if a skeleton is all he's got. Taejin states that this won't even be a challenge, and orders Eratus to attack. Eratus charges forward and strikes the Death Knight with a single blow. The hit decimates the Death Knight's armor, leaving Young Taejo shocked by what just happened. Taejin knew this would happen, stating that the power of light will burn him alive. He then asks Eratus what he thought of the new equipment, and the skeleton replies that it's very effective, though he feels a little guilty. But Taejin tells him not to mind it and to destroy the enemy, while Young Taejo wonders if that skeleton could be a holy type monster. Young Taejo reacts, finding the situation literally impossible. He wonders how a skeleton can be holy type. Mana exists in different elements that interrelate and affect the outcome of a battle. Eratus is naturally a dark type, but Taejin trained him, so due to constant training, he has become the only skeleton with holy type resistance. Taejin orders the execution, and Eratus advances in his master's name. Young Taejo yells for his Death Knight to dodge the attack, but the creature dodges, and Eratus strikes the ground with his mace. The Death Knight then prepares to counterattack. Its sword collides with Eratus' shield. Taejin states that darkness has no way of defeating the light. Then, he tells Eratus it's time to finish it and use that. He claims his minion will be the one to put an end to this fight, as Eratus starts reading a book. Young Taejo watches, not understanding what the skeleton is doing. Eratus then takes one of the items from his belt, and he holds the object, declaring, "Let there be light." The object releases a light that envelops the Death Knight. The light then explodes in an intense flash, The crowd complains they can't see anything, with some saying the light is purifying them to the bone. Another guild member shouts, questioning what's wrong with that skeleton. He yells that such an amount of holy energy is basically self-destruction. Taejin simply declares it's all over for young Tae-jo. With his skeleton still standing, he declares his victory. It's clear that Iratus isn't immune to holy-type mana, and the attacks he uses still cause him some damage. He's just a very resilient skeleton. Taejin approaches young Tae-jo, who can't believe what happened, and reminds him that a deal's a deal. He holds out his hand and demands everything young Tae-jo has unjustly gained from the Radiant Wraiths. The crowd begins to comment on the victory, as young Tae-jo falls to his knees. He can't believe what's happening and laments that if he'd had a little more time, he would have succeeded. He then reveals he leaked information to Hyunsu Bae of the Death Phantom Guild about their guild's urn of the undead necromancer, and he also arranged a back alley meeting for him with Young Min-go. He planned to quietly gather evidence to blackmail Young Min-go and become the guild master, but he laments that everything was ruined by that little meddler. Young Tae-jo stands up, refusing to let the opportunity slip away after all his hard work. Then, he reveals a dark, pulsating heart in his hand, questioning if Taejin thinks he'll give it all up so easily. He raises it, declaring he'll take everyone with him as the crowd recognizes the forbidden item as a demon's heart. The guide yells for Young Tae to stop, but he just replies that it's fine then. With a scream, he announces it's time for everyone to die. Taejin reacts, unable to believe he's serious. His appraisal eye activates. He discovers that the forgotten demon's heart consumes the user's mana and life force to summon a cursed being. Young Tae is consumed by dark energy and tells Taejin he'll see him in hell. His body dissolves into a dark puddle on the arena floor, and from the ground emerges the Abyss Bride, a creature of unknown level. One of the guild members panics, screaming that they're all going to die. The creature attacks, and someone yells for everyone to run. A skill nullifies the effects of the creature's wail, protecting Taejin and those around him. Taejin is surprised by the S-rank curse cast right off the bat. He simply comments that this is a ridiculous monster. A voice then offers to help him. Jeonho-go, the Bone King, appears and tells Taejin he can't handle this alone. Taejin asks how long he's been there, and the guildmaster explains he couldn't miss an initiation ceremony. He then observes the skeleton and comments that it doesn't seem to be just any ordinary skeleton. Jeonho notices the creature possesses a strong sense of self-awareness, looking more like an undead necromancer than a common summon. Leaving the chat for later, he states they need to get rid of the evil spirit that the incompetent fool summoned, and then he attacks before things get any worse. His attacks hit the Abyss Bride head-on, but he realizes the attack did no damage, concluding that she is strong for being summoned with Young Tae's own life. He then prepares to see how she'll handle his next attack, and he casts his blood magic, Blood Rupture. Taejin is impressed by the incredible power of the Bone King's legendary blood magic. He was the Bone King of the underworld, a necromancer of unparalleled strength who reigned for nearly 2 decades. But, although he is now retired and forgotten by society, in his prime, he was a legendary hunter who elevated the Radiant Wraiths to 3rd place in the country. His blood magic strikes the dark creature, but it counterattacks through the connection, injuring Jeonho-go's hand. He coughs from the impact of the damage received. Taejin runs to support him, and the guildmaster admits he was careless. Blood magic uses the caster's own blood as a medium to make contact with the target, and that's a terrible combination against a monster that contaminates everything it touches with a curse. If he can't fight up close, Taejin then prepares a fireball. He launches the attack, yelling for the creature to burn to death. The Abyss Bride simply stops the attack with her hand. Taejin wonders what's happening, as Addie Min warns him to be careful. The creature advances, and he realizes he doesn't have enough mana to use the Rising Dragon Fist. At this rate, he won't be able to defend against the next blow. The creature's blow is blocked by Iratus' shield, who invokes the name of the Light and the Holy Spirit. The Abyss Bride declares him unforgivable and attacks him again. Then, Iratus stands in front of his master, assuring him he'll take care of everything. While Taejin questions where he's been, he explains he was hit by a lot of light in the previous fight, and because of that, he was kind of knocked out on his feet. But Iratus assures him there's nothing to fear, as he will put his life on the line to protect his master. He then charges at the creature, wishing for God's grace to shine upon her. Addie Min asks Taejin if he doesn't look a little different, and he agrees. Iratus attacks the evil spirit, declaring he will purify its soul with the light of the Holy Spirit. The creature simply grabs his head with her hands. She completely overpowers him, and Taejin yells his minion's name. Iratus is then engulfed by the creature's energy. Taejin realizes that not even the holy attacks are working against her. He wonders how he can defeat her, while the fallen Iratus believes this is the end of the line for him, but he asks his master to survive. as Taejin questions what he's planning to do. Iratus raises his sword and declares he'll risk it all to go out with a bang. He asks his master to take care, as Taejin yells for him to wait, questioning if he's gone mad. Taejin warns him about the consequences of using that weapon, but Iratus points it at the creature. He says he doesn't want to say goodbye yet, as he knows there's no coming back after using the weapon. Then, Taejin begs him to please stop, but he yells that the item is single-use and costs 8 billion won. Iratus raises the sword, which expands with energy. He then strikes the Abyss Bride, creating a massive explosion. Jeonho Go watches the scene, finding it unbelievable. He wonders how a skeleton can handle not only holy items, but also a sword of that caliber. The dark creature disintegrates within the energy blast. A system notification announces that the Abyss Bride has been defeated, and that Iratus' holy resistance has slightly increased. Taejin scolds him, saying he told him to use that sword only in a life-or-death situation, and Iratus apologizes. But Iratus replies that all he wanted was to protect his master. Iratus' body begins to petrify, and Taejin calls him an idiot, but acknowledges he can't scold him now. The legendary item, the Constellation of the Divine King, possesses power beyond imagination, even with the huge debuff to the user. But the problem is that the cost to repair its energy is astronomical. Taejin complains it's better to just buy a new one, and Addy Min comments that expensive things have their value for a reason. He then touches his petrified minion's shoulder and says that, still, it was a good job. He admits he thought Iratus was just a sneaky bastard, but that he's a true warrior. Taejin thanks him for saving them, and the skeleton is moved by his master's words. Jeonho Go approaches and comments that the skeleton seems to be under a troublesome spell, while Addy Min asks if he's okay. The guildmaster asks if he doesn't need to find a way to cure him, but Taejin says he can just cancel the summon for him to rest. Jeonho then nods in agreement. He admits that in all his years as a hunter, he's never seen a skeleton equipped with holy items, and Taejin asks if it isn't incredible. But to Jeonho, it was like watching the heroes of the past. Taejin awkwardly replies that it's just a skeleton. The guild master then thanks Hunter Taejin. He explains that regardless of his intentions, Taejin allowed the Radiant Wraiths to escape Yongtae's grasp. Jeonho looks at him and says he doesn't think his goal is much different from his own. Then he asks what Taejin thinks, and if the guild still has any use. Taejin gulps, realizing he knew all along, concluding that experience is a scary thing. He then states he has only one reason for wanting to join the Radiant Wraiths, and that reason is to use them for his own benefit, which is why he was after the Vice Master position. He states he has no intention of taking what belongs to others and confirms the guild is still useful to him. The guild master simply replies that it's fine then. Jeonho Go addresses the crowd, stating that today's duel has clearly proven Taejin's extraordinary skills. The guild members acknowledge that he not only defeated Yongtae in necromancy, but also saved their lives by destroying the demon. So, as the Bone King of the Underworld, he declares Taejin as the new Vice Master of the Radiant Wraiths Guild. He invites him to say a few words to the applauding crowd, but Taejin seems not to understand. Jeonho explains it would be a brief inauguration speech, leaving Taejin a bit embarrassed. He steps forward and formally introduces himself as Taejin Lee. Taejin then states he has only one thing to say to everyone, and with his fist raised, he yells for them not to backstab each other for selfish gain. The scene then shifts to the Mythos Guild headquarters at dusk. A news report on the screen informs that Hunter Taejin Lee has joined the Radiant Wraiths as Vice Master. Suyeon Cha comments that he didn't expect him to join the Radiant Wraiths of all guilds. Yerin Cha gets annoyed, saying she helped him so much she almost feels betrayed, and complains that he keeps losing special talents for being too passive. She questions how long he'll let people take advantage of him, but Suyeon thinks she was a bit harsh. The young woman laments not being able to recruit Taejin Lee, stating that a talent like his is almost impossible to find, and she wonders why on earth he would join a second-rate guild with the skills he possesses. Yerin Cha turns to Seona and suggests she talk to Taejun since they're close. She then asks the young woman to convince him that Mythos is a much better option for him, but Seona isn't sure if he'll listen to her. Yerin questions their closeness, and Seona explains that while they are friends, it's been harder to understand him lately. The young woman agrees, and Seona adds that even being next to him feels like he's in a completely different place. She wonders why he insisted on being a freelancer and then suddenly joined the Radiant Wraiths, admitting she sometimes doesn't get him, but one thing she knows is that he's always pushing himself to get stronger, as the guild members welcome him as the new Vice Master. One of the members offers to guide him to his office, and despite Taejin's refusal, the man insists. The man bows goodbye, and Taejin thanks him as he leaves. In his office, he wonders if the Vice Master position is that big of a deal, but Addy Min believes it depends on the guild. Addy then asks how he feels on his first day as the guild's vice master. He replies he doesn't feel any different and starts to wonder if this was what he really wanted. Taejin spins in his chair, commenting that he's heard success can be lonely. Until now, he's been very focused on what was right in front of him. In the last few months, he has gained strength at a rapid pace through missions, catching up to other hunters as if being compensated for his 7 years of misery. Taejin reflects that he has become powerful now, but he questions if it's really possible to gain so much power so quickly, as something feels unsettling. He then turns to Addy and asks about the developer of explosive growth, remembering she said he had already left the company. Taejin concludes it's not possible to find out what would happen upon failing a mission, but he assumes there are penalties. Addy simply says she doesn't know the answer. She then offers to access the server and find out, and Taejin tells her to take as much time as she needs. Alone, he realizes that, on second thought, he doesn't know much about Addy either. He finds it especially strange that he's the only one using the latest version of the status window, and decides he can't keep reaping the rewards without knowing anything about it. But as he wonders what the administration department is, Addy reappears in a panic, declaring an emergency. Taejin tells her to calm down and asks what's happening, and Addy explains she found some guidelines on the explosive growth missions. He asks her to tell him about the guidelines, and Addy prepares to read them. Addy then begins to read the first part of the explosive growth mission guidelines. She reveals that the activation of explosive growth can generate missions tailored to the user's current situation, and if the user fails to complete the mission within the time limit, the effects of the explosive growth are immediately nullified. She explains the measure is to prevent the user from becoming powerful too quickly, and Taejin stands up as a mission appears. The mission requires him to acquire an item that synergizes with his skills, and he realizes he'll lose everything he's gained so far. Taejin asks if this means he'll lose everything he's achieved so far. Addy says yes. He asks her why he wasn't told sooner, but she explains she didn't know either, and had to infiltrate to find out. Taejin presses her about infiltrating, and Addy reveals the exact details are confidential information that even she can't access. All she knows is that the skill is labeled as something that needs special attention. Addy realizes she shouldn't have said that part, and he stares at her, finding the situation suspicious. He finds it strange how she stuck around all day just to teach him how to use the status window. The whole situation reminds him of a game admin setting up a test server for an update. So, Taejin asks her directly if she came to watch him. He asks if she was sent to observe his skill, since not even her superiors knew much about it. Addy replies that it's not something she can share with him at the moment. Taejin mocks her, complaining that she always says she can't tell him things, but she cuts him off, stating there is something she can say with confidence. And then Addy declares that she will always be on Taejin's side. He asks if he can really trust her, and Addy says yes, because they're friends and she wants what's best for him. Taejin concludes that she doesn't seem like a bad person. Although she has a clumsy side, he remembers she always worried about him when he was in danger. Taejin decides to give her the benefit of the doubt for now, and checks the time remaining for the mission. Addy says she changed the interface to make it easier to read, but he complains about her taking so long. She replies that she didn't know either. The mission screen shows a little over 2 days are left, and Taejin admits it's gotten easier to read. He realizes time is running out, so Addy suggests he check his post on the parsley market. He remembers the post and decides to see how many comments he's received. Upon opening the post, he sees the only comment is spam. Taejin laments all the wasted effort, but Addy tells him a new reply has just arrived. The new comment says it looks like he's brought another interesting item. In a private chat, the user confirms they remember Taejin, who replies to the message. The man explains that the item has very complex mana paths that can be restored to make it work again, but he warns that fixing these paths would require the help of a 7-circle mage. At a minimum, the person suggests he find someone he knows who fits that description, and Taejin thanks him for the tip. After the user leaves the chat, he asks Addy if she knows any mages like that. She suggests Yeonhwa, but Taejin explains that even she isn't past 5 circles. Addy is surprised to learn she's not the best in the country. Taejin explains that as far as he knows, there are no 7-circle mages in Korea, as they would be the best in the world. Addy asks what they're going to do, and he replies that he knows only one person who can help. He doesn't know how reliable this person might be, but he admits it's his only chance. Someone knocks on an office door and says, "Hello?" A man opens the door, looking for the vice master, as he has some documents for him to sign. He enters the empty room and mutters that this might as well be part of his duties. Then, he finds a note on the chair that reads, "Taking the day off today." The man is left confused by the situation. He wonders who would take a day off on their first day, as the scene changes to the Tower of Trials. Taejin and Addy enter the place, and he comments on how it's still deserted. She asks why this dungeon is in the middle of the city, and he calls her a newbie. He explains that the place is actually a large gate that can alter the surrounding terrain to fit itself. That doesn't necessarily mean it's any different from other dungeons. Taejin mentions hearing it was just an old building, and Addie jots down the information. Looking around, he wonders where that old man is, and if he's gone senile again. Elkaroid lands with a huge impact on the ground, welcoming the young man. Taejin shields himself from the debris flying from his arrival. The Tower Master strikes a pose and wishes for the power of protein to bless his journey, making Taejin complain about being startled. Then, Elkaroid recognizes him as the boy who saved his life and shakes his hand, noting that he seems to have trained a lot. He asks what brings him here, since he considers him too strong for a place like this. Taejin explains he came to ask for a favor and shows an item in his hands. He says the object has broken mana paths and asks if the master would be able to fix it. Elkaroid agrees to do the repair as he feels he owes him a great favor, but before he starts, he turns around and says he'd like to ask one thing. The master questions him about what it means to him to be truly strong. Taejin doesn't understand, and Elkaroid explains that seeking strength is a way of staying true to one's beliefs. He continues, saying that some go through arduous training while others dedicate their lives to honing their techniques to achieve their goals. Then, Elkaroid points directly at the young man and demands to know for what reason he wishes to become stronger. Taejin replies that actually he's never really thought much about it. The master calls him a foolish young man and lunges toward him, stating that strength without purpose is nothing but poison. Elkaroid attacks Taejin with a powerful punch. The blow vaporizes a part of the wall. Taejin recovers from the attack and says he almost died from that. Elkaroid approaches and comments that, although he is fast, his heart wavers. He compares him to a lone beast that doesn't know where to go. Taejin asks if he wants to fight, and the master replies that he will teach him a great lesson. Then, he strikes a pose and tells him not to worry about dying, as he'll go easy on him. Taejin says he's starting to get on his nerves. He dashes forward at high speed and warns him not to accuse him of elder abuse. He hits him with an uppercut. Elkaroid blocks the attack with his arm and compliments him on the strength of the blow. But Taejin replies that he's not even started yet, and readies another punch. He unleashes a rapid sequence of punches against the master. Next, he uses a secret technique, and finishes with a fireball. The attack hits its target in a huge explosion. Taejin asks if he got him, but Addie scolds him not to jinx it. Elkaroid emerges unscathed from the smoke, praising his physical strength and the creative use of his techniques. But the Tower Master says there's one thing he's forgotten. He reveals himself to be a mage, body and soul. A skill window displays Elkaroid's fireball. Chapter 27. Elkaroid reveals himself as a full-fledged mage, surrounded by his energy. Taejin stares at him and asks if that fireball is the same skill as his. The master explains that the skill varies greatly depending on the caster's mana. He continues, saying that the amount and type of mana create infinite variations for that attack. Then, the master says his fireball has evolved, but it still lacks the ultimate power. Elkaroid states that mana is the source of all desires and unleashes his supreme fireball, which carries his dreams. He says Taejin can't reach that level if he only wishes to get stronger for the sake of it. Taejin loses his balance and yells, reminding the master that he promised to go easy on him. The master instructs him to defend himself with everything he's got, and to reveal who he is and what he truly desires. The massive attack hurtles toward Taejin. He faces the attack and questions why he wanted to become stronger in the first place. A memory shows that for 7 years, his suffering was endless, but he trained even harder when others cast him aside. The reason he was able to keep pushing himself so hard, even though no one acknowledged or cared about him, was because he wanted to prove that his years of hard work were not in vain. He declares that he still hasn't been compensated for all his blood, sweat, and tears, and is not satisfied yet. So, he fires his own energy at the master's attack, determined to keep moving forward. He is resolved to continue until he can accept himself. Elkaroid faces the flame coming toward him. He says that although it's weak, he can feel the young man's true desire. The master wonders if the boy has finally found an answer. He dispels the attack with a gesture and declares the lesson is over. Elkaroid tells Taejin that he finally seems to have found his path, while explaining that he lacks the strength to handle such power. Taejin collapses on the ground, exhausted, admitting he really almost died. The Tower Master says, "Just as I thought," holding the item. He comments that it has a very complex mana path. Taejin is surprised to learn the restoration will take 8 to 12 hours. Elkaroid explains that the restoration process is meticulous and requires great mental fortitude. He warns that since his consciousness and energy will be focused on the item, he won't be able to move the entire time. Finally, he asks if Taejin would be kind enough to stand guard. Taejin agrees, saying it's no big deal. The master says he'll leave the task to him, and Taijin asks him to start immediately. Then, Elkaroid begins the process. He channels his energy into the item. The master starts chanting a mantra, leaving Taijin and Addy confused about whether he's a Buddhist. Taijin wonders why he needs to stand guard, since there's no one else around. He complains about how long it's taking and decides to take a nap, as there's nothing else to do. He explains that he doesn't see any monsters nearby and can't stand guard for 8 hours straight. Addy decides to take a break too, and Taijin asks to be woken up when the time comes. 3 hours later, he mutters something about the master in his sleep. He keeps dreaming and says that if the person insists, he can't refuse. A spider-like creature climbs onto his chest as he says thanks. Suddenly, Taijin's eyes snap open. He's startled by the creature on his chest and yells, calling it disgusting. With a single blow, he crushes the creature. Taijin recovers from the shock and wonders what a monster was doing there. Then, more creatures emerge from the shadows. He questions where they came from since the master should have control over them. He wonders if this is a dimensional shift and if those are void monsters. It's explained that void monsters wander between dimensions and occasionally appear when they sense mana from dungeons. Taijin realizes they're after the master's mana. He gets up, saying the old man was right to ask for protection and that he was getting bored of napping anyway. Then, he charges toward the creatures to fight. With a single strike, he hits one of the monsters head-on. He continues to fight the swarm, but Addy warns him to look in another direction. Taijin turns his head to see the new threat. A giant spider-like creature appears, and he complains that he hates spiders. He launches a barrage of fireballs, yelling for them to stay away from his precious item. The attack surges toward the monsters. The creatures are hit, and he says that was a close call. Taijin declares that he, Lee Taijin, will always protect his items at any cost. Addy asks what's happening, and Taijin explains that the monsters must have come from another dimension, since they appear where there's mana. A portal opens above them, unleashing a swarm of creatures. He stares at the scene, completely stunned. Addy warns him about the huge number of monsters advancing on the master, and he agrees. He realizes he can't handle the situation alone, and prepares for a summoning. Then, Taijin summons Aratus, who presents himself, ready for service. Taijin orders them to protect the muscular old man from all those spiders, and his servant responds, understood. He orders his servant to take position, and Aratus moves forward with his shield at the ready. The battle against the void spiders drags on for hours. The creatures kept pouring out of the portal, even after being destroyed, growing in number and size. 4 hours later, Elkaroid remains focused on the item, surrounded by the remains of the monsters. Exhausted and wounded, Taijin begs for it to stop. He climbs a pile of defeated creatures, only to face an even larger horde. A giant void spider descends from the portal, heading straight for him. Aratus warns him of an attack from behind, but Taijin realizes the danger too late. With no energy left to dodge, Taijin hears someone yell for him to get out of the way. A swift slash destroys the creature before it can reach him. The monster falls behind him, and Taijin wonders about that familiar attack. A new person appears, saying he was wondering what kind of idiot was making such a mess, only to find out it was him. Taijin recognizes him, along with the girl by his side. The newcomer greets him and asks if he's okay. Chapter 28. While one of his friends attacks him, the other hands him a potion, and Taijun asks how they found him. Jinyak then asks if he has any idea what's happening outside the gate. He explains that the dungeon has gone completely haywire, causing monsters to escape and forcing an evacuation of the area. He complains about his bad luck, since a national emergency happened on his day off. Taijin finally understands the whole situation. If the number of monsters exceeds a dungeon's limit, its mana becomes unstable, and the creatures escape through the gates. This phenomenon is known as a dungeon break, and it was the cause of the catastrophe many years ago. Sayana then asks what happened there and who the older man is. Taijin looks back towards the master. He fumbles, unsure how to explain the situation. He says he can explain in detail later, but for now, the man is the dungeon's guardian NPC and is recovering. Taijin concludes the monsters probably appeared because they sensed his mana. For now, he suggests they defeat all the spiders to stabilize the dungeon again. Jinhyuk replies that they don't need to be told, as they were already planning to do just that. Taijin suggests they fight together, and Jinhyuk agrees, just telling him not to get in the way. Jinhyuk attacks the monsters with his spear. The electric attack spreads, hitting several creatures. He comments on how weak the monsters are, but one of them lunges to attack him from behind. A swift strike intercepts the creature. The monster is sliced in half before it can reach him. Sayana warns him not to let his guard down. Even though they're weak, their numbers are overwhelming. She continues, saying that if they hesitate for even a second, they'll be lost. Jinhyuk replies that he knows what he's doing, but she doesn't seem convinced. Irados appears between them and agrees with Seona. He then declares that it's crucial they cooperate and hold their positions, as they must be relentless. The pair freezes at the sight of the skeleton. They ask who he is, as more monsters advance toward the master. Taejin intercepts the creatures approaching Elkaroid. He observes the situation and says it's not unusual for void monsters to come after mana, but the number of monsters is something he's never seen before. The ground shakes and Jinhyuk wonders what's happening. He then shouts for the others to look, as something is coming out of the ground. A giant creature emerges from the earth, and Taejin asks if that's the boss. He realizes that's why the monsters kept coming. The status screen reveals the creature is the Void Spider Queen, responsible for producing the monsters. Taejin realizes the spiders didn't come from another dimension, only the queen did. He remarks to Seon-ah that the queen is the host, and she asks if he noticed too. He says she won't be easy to defeat, and that there must be a reason she revealed herself. It could be a trap to lure them in. Jinhyuk declares they can't just stand around now that the host has appeared. He charges at the monsters, saying they'll be food if they don't fight back. Taejin agrees, saying he's not wrong, but they can't attack recklessly or defend forever. The best option right now is something else. He points to Irados and orders him to attack, surprising the skeleton. Irados asks if he's being sent to his death, and Taejin simply confirms it, asking if there's a problem. Taejin reminds him that he can come back to life at any moment. He promises to revive Irados if he dies, but the skeleton is shocked to realize his master thinks so little of him. Then, Taejin scolds him, saying that if he's a summon, he should act like one. Jinhyuk and Seona shout at him to go check if it's a trap, but Irados complains that he's severely injured. The group urges him to advance and attack the queen. Irados finally understands the situation. He realizes that from the very beginning, he was nothing more than a tool. So, he charges towards the queen, crying out to his father in the heavens. He asks for strength and strikes the creature, but something confuses him. Perched on the queen's back, completely unharmed, he asks what's going on since nothing happened. Taejin says he knew it wouldn't be a big deal, but then yells for him to look closely. The creature's flesh begins to writhe around his weapon. Irados asks what the disgusting spider is doing to his sacred mace. He tries to pull the mace away from its body. The group watches the scene, and Taejin wonders why the queen was trying to eat his servant's weapon. Taejin has a sudden realization about the enemy. He shouts to his friends that the Spider Queen can absorb mana and that they need to fight without using their skills. Jinhyuk thinks the idea is ridiculous, but Seona agrees with Taejin. She explains that she noticed the number of spiders only increases when they use stronger attacks. Seona concludes that the queen has been feeding on their mana the entire time. Jinhyuk complains that of all the dungeons he's ever been in, this is the worst. He understands they need to stop using skills, and Taejin reinforces that they can't even expose their mana. Jinhyuk charges forward, declaring he doesn't need mana to kill these little creatures. Seona asks Taejin if everything is alright. He gives her a thumbs up, saying they're doing great. He tells them he's going after the queen, and asks them to keep fighting. Jinhyuk accuses him of trying to steal the spotlight again. He yells for Taejin not to fail, as the young man remembers that Irados' attack confirmed the queen is after mana. He realizes she doesn't eat just any kind, but only certain variations of mana. So he approaches the creature and asks if it's still hungry. He suggests that maybe the creature would like a taste of his fireball. His friends react, and Jinhyuk questions him for using skills after telling them not to. He launches the attack, and Jinhyuk asks if he's trying to get them buried under a mountain of spiders. The Spider Queen opens her mouth to absorb the attack. She begins to absorb the energy from the approaching fireball. Taejin recalls that mana reflects true desires, and that its characteristics can vary infinitely. And if he can hide that desire, it's also possible to conceal the properties of the mana. The attack hits the queen, who can't understand what's happening. Jinhyuk asks what's up with that fireball, while Taejin yells for the creature to open wide. He then declares that this is a perfectly cooked fireball. Jinhyuk and Seona react to the creature, while Taejin asks about the fireball and yells for it to open its mouth. Then he calls it a perfectly cooked fireball. The attack hits the Void Spider Queen square on. She is violently thrown back. Jinhyuk wonders what that was, as he thought the queen could absorb their mana. The creature writhes on the ground. A system notification informs them that it suffered fatal damage by absorbing impure mana, deactivating its ability. Seona realizes that Taejin's fireball had a type of mana the queen couldn't absorb. She wonders how, since it takes a 5-circle mage to alter the type of mana. Seona then asks if Taejin has really evolved that much. He warns everyone that the queen can no longer absorb mana. Taejin encourages them to finish her off, and Seona charges forward. Jinhyuk states he doesn't know what's going on, but he decides they need to get rid of the spider first and attacks it. Seona asks Jinhyuk to keep the creature pinned down. She then thinks that Taijin shouldn't have any mana left. Seona charges forward, declaring she'll finish the creature with her own hands. The Void Spider Queen is hit dead on. Jinhyuk turns and asks if it's over, but Taijin replies that it's not over yet, as he forms a new sphere in his hands. He states that he will use every last drop of mana he has left. Then, the young man unleashes a massive attack to erase its existence. Taijin approaches the site of the explosion. He says the hellish battle is finally over, but they must remain vigilant until the very end. Suddenly, Iratus crushes what's left of the queen, saying that you must double-check even a fire that's gone out. The creature's body disappears, and a system notification informs them it has been defeated. The skeleton introduces himself as Iratus, the one who is always on guard. The group watches the scene, and Seon-ah calls him a show-off. Looking at the street, Taijin wonders what that thing is. He notes that the small creature looks familiar, and the system identifies it as a Spider Queen's hatchling. Addie Min appears and says the queen must have laid eggs, expressing her displeasure as the hatchling squirms on Taijin's clothes. A system notification informs Taijin that he can produce void silk threads with the Spider Queen's hatchling. He comments that this could be useful if he can use the infinite production mechanism correctly. Then, the system warns that the hatchling is absorbing his mana. Another notification appears, revealing that the creature now sees him as its mother. Taijin decides to store it in the salsa market, but Addie Min scolds him for using the system like that. Seon-ah approaches and says she thinks the other spiders have been eliminated. He gives a thumbs up, commenting that the dungeon is calming down and the Tower Master should recover soon, which surprises Seona. She asks that, now that everything is settled, he tell her what's going on. The girl continues, asking what happened there and why he went to that place. Jinhyuk agrees that it makes no sense for a hunter with his skills to visit such an easy dungeon. Elkaroid then asks if Taijin has a secret he can't tell, making him flinch. The Tower Master reflects that he can't admit the dungeon break was his fault, but he thinks he has an excuse ready as Taijin denies having any secrets to hide. The young man claims he came because he knew the dungeon break would happen, as his priority is to protect civilians. Seona questions how he could have known that in advance. Seona comments that the reason for dungeon breaks is still a mystery. Taijin then explains that he didn't know on his own, as someone told him, making her curious. He begins to say who it was, and the scene shifts to the Radiant Spectres Guild headquarters. Dozens of camera flashes go off simultaneously. A reporter asks Taijin if it's true that he predicted the dungeon break before it happened. Another person mentions his great contribution to subjugating the monsters and asks what's going on. Taijin states that all he did was put people's safety first. Then he gives the credit for the prediction to Guildmaster Go, who reacts with surprise. He informs the reporters that he knows absolutely nothing about the incident and that questions should be directed to the master. The crowd of reporters falls silent for a moment. Taijin turns to the man and asks if it's not true, but he seems confused. The young man then reminds him that he was the one who told him when the dungeon break would happen. The guildmaster realizes the young man is trying to make him take the fall for his mess, while the man stammers, not knowing how he could have known something like that. Taijin announces he needs to go take care of some business. He wishes him good luck with the reporters and runs off, while the guildmaster desperately begs him to wait. The door to the vice leader's office closes. Taijin throws himself into his chair, saying he's safe for now, but Addie Min asks if it'll be okay, since he dumped everything on the guildmaster. He reassures her, stating that everything is fine and she doesn't need to worry. The young man then reveals he specified in the contract that the employer must fulfill the duties of the employee. He justifies that the master doesn't do anything anyway, and that he even boosted the guild's reputation, making it a win-win, which leads Addie to call him a devil. Addie reminds him that he managed to complete the explosive growth mission and won't have to stress about time anymore. Taijin agrees it was a close call, as any delay would have put him in deep trouble, but he reveals that all that acting and bluffing earned him the Dragon Claw gauntlets. Addie Min is impressed by the item's enchantment, which ignores half of the target's physical defense. He says all that hard work was worth it as he equips the gauntlet, admitting he didn't expect such a huge boost. The young man reflects that the mission's risk was extremely high, but the reward for success is immense. He concludes that if he keeps completing these missions on time, his growth rate will be unbelievably fast. Taijin tells Addie that while training with the old man, he realized he had lived the last few years without a dream. She supposes he didn't have any big goals because all he cared about was money. He agrees and adds that if you're going to have a goal, it's better to aim high so you get a good return even if you only get halfway there. Taijin reveals to her that his goal is to become one of the greatest hunters. Addie Min reacts with surprise, but he assures her he's serious. He explains that aiming high requires unwavering determination. Then, the young man sits down and begins to explain what he needs most to get there. With a smile, he shows the spider hatchling and declares that what he obviously needs is money. Chapter 30. The spider hatchling trembles and begins to produce a silk thread. Taijin sits on the floor and says the creature disgusts him, but he holds the thread and declares it an extraordinary discovery. He thought it would be a basic material, but he discovers the hatchling can infinitely produce a high-value item. The young man then celebrates, as the creature is basically a golden goose. He realizes that continuous production requires a constant source of mana. Someone knocks on the office door and asks if they can come in. Taijin allows the person to enter. Master Go enters, complaining about the reporters, and asks what Taijin did to draw them there. The master despairs, unable to think of a legitimate excuse for a beginner dungeon break. Taijin reassures him, saying not to worry, as he's handling it well. He then hugs him and asks him to keep it up, but Master Go still questions if everything will be okay. The master fears the reporters will uncover the lie, but Taijin says he still needs to learn how the world works. He explains that what's important isn't how something was done, but what was done. Now, the story is about a guild master who foresaw the catastrophe, and a hunter who fought to protect the people. Taijin explains that this victory will be remembered, and will positively impact the guild's reputation, which had been declining in recent years, and he concludes it will bring more profit to the Radiant Specters. Master Go agrees with him. Elsewhere, the master asks why Taijin summoned him to this barely used space. Taijin says he was thinking of setting up a workspace there, and that the master can help him with something. He then offers the small hatchling for the master to look at. The young man explains it's the hatchling of the Void Spider Queen, and can produce silk threads infinitely with enough mana. He continues, saying it's a rare ingredient that costs 1 million for a small amount, leaving Master Go stunned. The master gets excited thinking about the total value, and Taijin says it seems he finally understands. Taijin asks him to take care of the hatchling, introducing him as the creature's new father. The place begins to fill with spider webs. Master Go offers some mana fragments on a tray. He places them on the floor for the spider, which is now giant, and wishes it a good meal. The creature looms over him, and he backs away. The spider devours the fragments as Master Go screams and apologizes. He wonders how the creature could have grown so fast. Master Go fears that if it gets any bigger, it could swallow the entire building, and his phone starts to ring. He answers Taijin's call, who asks how things are going. Master Go replies that everything is fine and he's already collected a lot of silk, and Taijin tells him to keep up the good work. Addy Min asks if he can ask a question, and Taijin allows him to proceed. He asks if it's safe to be near the creature, but Taijin tells him not to worry so much. Taijin claims his little spider doesn't bite, but Master Go thinks he must be kidding. Taijin tells him to keep taking care of the spider, as he's going on a business trip, which makes Master Go curious about the destination. He reveals he's going to visit Daiwa Island, where the guild's founding master is. Master Go's scream is so loud it startles Taijin, who asks if there's a problem. He explains it's a Class 1 danger zone, restricted to S-rank hunters, and that unauthorized entry is forbidden. Master Go says you need a pass or an authorized person to accompany you, but he hasn't been able to contact his uncle lately. Taijin repeats the information, saying he understands the situation. He then tells Master Go not to worry, as he has many connections and will find a way. Master Go asks why he suddenly wants to go to Daehua Island, and if he needs to discuss something urgent with his uncle. Taijin replies that he just wants to pay a visit as the new Vice Guild leader, and heard that he had prepared a gift. He then continues talking. A mission notification reveals he needs to acquire a blood magic skill, which makes him think he really needs to find him as soon as possible. The remaining time for the mission continues to decrease. The scene shifts to the headquarters of the Blue Lotus Guild. Someone knocks on an office door, and Yeonhwa Seo, who is at her desk, grants them entry. Taijin enters the room with Addy Min and greets Master Seo. She greets him back, and he replies that he's doing as well as ever. Yeonhwa Seo mentions reading the news about how he stopped a major dungeon break. She comments that it seems he attracts trouble, but he says he was just lucky to be in the right place at the right time. The woman then closes the document she was reading and says it's a shame. Yeonhwa regrets that if she had known he would join the Radiant Specters, she would have been more insistent on recruiting him. She adds that she wasn't the only one disappointed, as he demonstrated his powers to many influential figures. Yeonhwa reveals that Master Cha and Master Ma got drunk because of him, but Taijin says he had no idea. Yeonhwa says it's all right, as it seems he's always had an interest in dark magic, so it makes sense for him to be with them. She then asks how she can help him today, and he begins to explain. Taijin says that he's trying to visit Daehwa Island tomorrow, but he doesn't have authorization unless an S-rank hunter accompanies him. He then invites her to go with him, in case she's free, but Yeonhwa refuses, explaining she already has scheduled commitments and won't be able to go. The news rattles him, as it ruins his plans, but she promises to make arrangements for him to visit the place. He asks if he can go even without her, and Yeonhwa explains that if one of her guild members goes along, it should be fine. Taejin expresses his relief upon hearing the news. Suddenly, she remembers she wanted to give him something. Yeonhwa offers him a card as a thank you for helping resolve the exam incident. He thanks her and asks what it is, and she explains that due to media exposure, he can no longer maintain his privacy. The woman reveals the card is a key to a luxury apartment built for high-ranking hunters, with top-notch security. She says she thought it would be a good gift given the circumstances, and asks what he thinks. With the card in his hand, he asks if he can call her Madame Seo. Yeonhwa replies that she doesn't think she's old enough for that title. The scene takes place at the King of Bones' residence on Daehwa Island. A dark voice enters the room and announces that the time has come for the King of Bones. She declares she can no longer contain her insatiable thirst. Then, the figure demands he hurry up and give her his blood, because if not, she will devour his entire body while enveloping him on the bed. Chapter 31, Seagulls Fly Over the Island's Harbor. The mission timer shows 3 days remaining, and Taijin takes note of his deadline. He figures he needs to learn blood magic within 2 days to maintain his skills. Taijin considers that even if he learns as fast as possible from the Bone King, time is short. He then asks Addie if a skill should be able to affect the status window's functions. He remembers that both Spellbreaker and Scanner were added by explosive growth. The young man questions if it's normal for a skill from a former employee to modify the company's system so much. Addie explains that she reported it to her superiors, but they took no action. She was only instructed to keep an eye on it, and Taejin understands the situation. He concludes that, for now, the skill poses no threat to the company. After completing the Gauntlet mission, he remembers receiving a new function called Mon Wiki. It's a function that provides all the details of a monster, including its weaknesses. At some point, explosive growth began to expand the functions of the status window itself. He decides to make the most of the skill until a young woman greets him. She waves and says he's even more handsome than the last time she saw him. Taejin asks if Hunter Siren is the one who will accompany him, and she confirms, saying it's an obvious choice. Then, she starts looking for something in her bag. Siren pulls out her phone and states that this is an opportunity she can't miss. She starts taking pictures with him, commenting on his fame and asking to post them on social media. He then asks what she thinks she's doing. Taijin tells her to stop taking pictures and questions why she's calling him Appa, since they aren't close. Suddenly, a young man bows deeply and greets Chief Taijin. Jaehyun Kang introduces himself, saying he is at the chief's service, which leaves Taejin and Siren perplexed. Siren asks him what he's doing there, and Jaehyun replies that a junior must support his senior. He declares that from the moment his life was saved, he swore to serve him for all eternity. Gion asks for permission to serve him, but Taijin says he can't just decide something like that, while Siren holds him back. Someone on a boat yells for them to stop wasting time. The ship's captain, Young-soo Kim, warns that he doesn't have all day. The boat then departs, moving away from the harbor. Once on board, the captain grumbles that he wouldn't go near the cursed island if Yeonhwa hadn't asked, and Taijin asks if there's a problem. The captain questions how he can call himself a hunter without knowing what kind of monsters inhabit the island. Taijin replies that he knows many sirens live in the area. The captain confirms, adding that it's their mating season. He explains that the monsters become extremely violent during mating season. Furthermore, they are sensitive and will attack as a group if their territory is invaded. The man warns that the path is too dangerous, so he'll have to take a detour. As the captain says it will take longer to avoid angering them, Taejin interrupts, saying there's no need. He then asks the captain to proceed on the fastest route. The captain gets worked up and asks if he's gone mad, as they could be swarmed. But Taejin reassures him, guaranteeing that hundreds of sirens couldn't even scratch the ship. He asks the man to trust him and take the fastest route. The captain refuses, saying he simply can't do that. The man says he has a family to support, but Taejin interrupts him with the word double. He then offers to pay double what Master Seo is paying. The captain shouts that he won't be bought with a bribe and that he won't do it, no matter how much they offer. Taejin yells that the payment will be quadruple. The captain is shocked by the offer. Then, the man yells to go full throttle and speeds up the boat. Taejin celebrates and challenges the monsters to appear. Siren approaches and tells him to be careful anyway. She explains that it's hard to predict where sea monsters will attack from. He replies that she's not wrong, but she doesn't need to worry. A system notification detects multiple enemies, and Taejin states he knows exactly where they all are. He warns that 3 are coming from the right and 5 from the left, which surprises her. Taijin says he'll handle the left side and asks Hunter Saren to take care of the right. The sirens leap from the water, and she realizes he wasn't kidding. Saren says she doesn't know how he knew, but decides to trust him. She then fires an arrow at the creatures. Taijin decides to wait until the monsters get very close. He waits for the exact moment they are about to board. Taijin activates his Gauntlet's ability, which now imbues his attacks with new strength and ignores the target's physical defense. He then unleashes a powerful combination strike against one of the sirens. Punching a creature, he says it's a waste to throw them back into the water. Taijin declares that he wants all of their mana fragments. Jaeon Kang watches him from a distance and confirms that the rumors were true. He recalls the rumors that Chief Taijin uses the Ascending Dragon Fist technique. Taijin turns to him, who wonders how much the young man actually saw. Taijin tries to explain that it's a different martial art, but Gion states that he's no longer his chief. He points at Taijin and declares that from that moment on, he is his rival. Taijin asks why he keeps deciding these things on his own. Jian then leaps from the boat to demonstrate the true technique, and Saren warns him that it's very dangerous. The boat finally approaches Dihua Island. On the beach, a man wonders if Hunter Taijin is coming to the island today. He then yells at Master Go on the phone, who makes excuses saying he couldn't get in touch. The man scolds him for not using the crystal orb and hangs up, leaving Master Go to regret his mistake. The man on the beach laments the terrible timing, as the monsters won't let the newcomer pass unharmed. As he considers what to do, Taijin shouts from the boat, apologizing to Master Bone King for the delay. He explains that it took longer than expected because they had many monsters to capture along the way. Taijin then introduces himself as the vice leader of the Radiant Specters, offering his respects to the founding master. Chapter 32. Taijin arrives on his boat, telling the Master Bone King he hopes he has been well. Surprised, the founding master asks if he defeated all the mermaids during their mating season. On board, Yongsoo Kim comments on how chaotic the hunt was. The captain adds that Taijin hunted creatures deep in the water, as if he had a radar, noting there can't be many left. Taijin steps onto the beach, explaining that he killed everyone he saw, but he's not sure if he got them all. He guesses some might be left in the deeper parts of the sea, but the founding master says that's more than enough. The old man explains that the survivors will soon die out, as they'll run out of food. He continues, saying that for some reason, they can't dive to the deepest depths. Taijin realizes he might have accidentally wiped them out. The founding master just starts to say, well, he then adds that there is one exception. Right as a navigation system detects a hostile enemy. Suddenly, an explosion in the water catches everyone's attention. A huge sea creature bursts through the water's surface. Jian Kang and Taijin watch it emerge. Jian Kang recognizes its threatening presence. Taijin tells Saren the enemy's location, and she confirms the order. She gets into position and declares she's going to immobilize it. With a gesture, she invokes a technique and traps the sea creature in ice. But the monster starts to break free, and the girl reacts to the strain. Then, the creature breaks completely free, shattering the ice prison. Saren starts convulsing on the boat, and someone asks what's wrong. She wonders if it's magic immunity, and asks how a B-rank monster like a mermaid could have such a powerful passive skill. Saren then warns Taijin that this is no ordinary mermaid. The creature leaps from the water, charging toward them. Yongsoo Kim points, shouting and asking what the hell that thing is. It's identified as Mermaid King A. The captain exclaims he never knew such a giant lived in these seas. Taijin faces the opponent, recognizing it as a mermaid king. Addie Min explains she can't use her fireball as it will be reflected, and freezing won't immobilize it. She suggests they should retreat and strategize, but the founding master says it's a pity, as they had served him well. He declares that it seems to be the end of the line for them, as a substance drips from his cane, and Taijin calls out to him. The founding master then orders the young hunters to step back, and states he will take care of it personally. With a gesture, he makes the substance rise from the water and trap the Mermaid King. He then addresses the creature, questioning if it dares to show its fangs to its own master. The monster writhes under the pressure of the technique. The creature continues to struggle against the restraint. The founding master declares the creature will be punished and intensifies the power of his ability. The creature is overwhelmed by the force of the attack. Then, the monster's remains fall back into the water in front of the group. Saren, aboard the boat, comments that it's unbelievable he defeated an A-class monster so easily. Taijun watches, thinking about the incredible power of that magic and its magic-piercing property. He concludes that, regardless of the mission, it would be very useful to learn that technique. The founding master states that with the monsters eliminated, Dehua Island will be at peace for now. He turns to Taijun and welcomes him to the island, calling him the guild's vice master. He continues, saying he wanted to personally deliver the gift for his appointment, and appreciates that Taijin came to meet him. Saren watches everything from the boat, while Taijin and Gaeon Kang stand still on the beach. The founding master invites everyone into his mansion. Inside, Taijin comments that he never imagined finding the Bone King on an island like this. Yeonhwa Seo tells Saren she now understands why Master Seo kept it a secret, while Taijin asks if the girl didn't know the Bone King lived here. Saren says no, as she never would have imagined one of Korea's legendary hunters living on a deserted island. Yeonhwa asks Taijin if he saw that display of power, and Saren adds that he destroyed the Mermaid King with a single attack. She says it was one of the coolest things she's ever seen, and that not even Master Seo could defeat that monster so easily. But Gaeon Kang says that's to be expected from the hero of the catastrophe. Then Gaeon Kang clenches his fist, declaring that his master is much more powerful. Someone calls him immature, leaving him with an annoyed expression. Later, Saren is shown to her room and thanks the maid. Taijin says goodbye to Gaeon Kang and Saren, thanking them for coming with him. He tells them he needs to talk with the Master Bone King and that they can go rest. The young man knocks on a door, and a voice invites him in. Opening the door, he greets the founding master, who is sitting at a table. The older man asks what he thinks of the room, and Taijin replies that it's great and the mansion is very elegant. The founding master replies that's good to hear. As he stands up, he invites Taijun to follow him to receive his gift, and the young man readily agrees. They both start walking down the hallway. As they walk down a staircase, the older man says he heard the news that he prevented a catastrophic disaster in Macheon. Taijin replies it was just luck, but the founding master advises him not to be so humble in front of him and to save that for the reporters. The young man insists he wasn't being humble, as he was the one who created the mess. He then says that Guildmaster Yongmin had the hardest time, but the founding master asks if he's referring to his foolish nephew. He explains that in the 3 years since his nephew became the leader, the guild has never been worse, with unpaid salaries and tax evasion. But now, thanks to Taijin, the guild has earned respect as one of the heroes, and his nephew should be the one thanking him. Taijin reacts, realizing that young Min Go sounds more incompetent than he imagined. So he asks the master why he left the guild to his nephew. The young man adds that even though he was family, he knew his nephew wasn't ready for the role. The founding master stops and begins to explain why. He reveals it was because he had grown weak. Then the older man tells him to hurry, as they can talk more later, and Taijin reflects on what he heard. The young man concludes that he's not wrong, as even the strongest hunters grow old and weak one day. But then, Taijin activates his reader to analyze the founding master. The system reports that the information is unavailable because the target's level is much higher than his. He then wonders what that means, since there are few hunters in the country he can't scan. He couldn't even see the information for Suyeon Cha, Taepyeong Ma, and Yeonhwa Seo, no matter how strong he got. He knows the Bone King is the hero of the catastrophe, but he wonders if he's still as strong as the others at his age. Taijin then wonders what secrets the Bone King of the underworld might be hiding. Upon entering a new room, Taijin and Adimin react with surprise. They find themselves in a huge underground hall filled with items. The young man is amazed to realize the founding master was hiding all of this in his basement. The older man says it's not much compared to the 4 great guilds, but Taijin's gift is here. He then invites him to choose an item, explaining he can't give them all away due to the penalties they carry. The young man then selects the skull of Magnutus. Taijin analyzes the S-class items information and finds it very good. He notices the other items here also have better stats than many of the rarest items in existence, and he thinks this is a ridiculously good offer for most hunters. But for him, there's nothing here he truly wants. So, the young man turns and asks the master if he has any items related to blood magic. The founding master is surprised and asks if he's interested in that area, and Taijin explains it would be useful since he's a radiant specter. He continues, saying the magic has magic penetration and costs no mana, making it very effective in dungeons. The older man apologizes but says he has no blood magic items here and asks him to choose something else. Taijin is confused, but the founding master turns and says he's going to prepare the food. The founding master tells him to feel free to take whatever he wants, and then leaves the room. Taijin feels something is strange and wonders if he's hiding something, and Addy confirms that he is. Suddenly, Taijin throws himself to the floor, declaring that only blood magic can satisfy him now. He then crawls on the floor, begging to be taught blood magic. Addy suggests it doesn't have to be an item, and that he could just ask the Lord Bone King to teach him. Taijin turns and explains that blood magic isn't something you learn just by asking someone to teach you. He explains that the technique requires a passive skill called demonic blood to be activated, making it impossible to use without it. Kneeling, he laments that he thought he could get a skill book to unlock demonic blood, but the lantern function discovers a hidden mechanism. Then the lantern function activates, revealing a specific spot in the hall to their surprise. Taejin is surprised by the feature, and Addie explains she added it because of a dark dungeon, asking if it isn't useful. Taejin then approaches and drags a heavy stone slab aside. He confirms there really was something hidden and finds a button, but Addie says she has a bad feeling he shouldn't press it, wondering if it's a bomb. Taejin laughs, saying it's the 21st century and nobody's attacking people with bombs. He adds that he can't resist and presses the button, declaring that even if he gets nothing, he has to take the risk. The entire hall begins to shake, and as Taejin turns around, Addie screams about an air raid alert. After the tremor, a pedestal rises from the floor, and Taejin asks what that is. On the pedestal is the Tome of 1,000 Bloods, a forbidden book that requires a blood sacrifice to use blood magic and unlock demonic blood. Taejin grabs the book with satisfaction, exclaiming that it was here all along and calling it his baby. Later during dinner, a servant asks the founding master if that will really be enough. The older man tells Taejin he would have liked to give him a grander gift, but the young man replies that this is perfect and thanks him. Holding the Onyx of Bandor, Taejin explains that he needed resistance to mental corruption. The founding master then replies that if this is his wish, he won't stop him. He says his goodbyes, mentioning that it's getting late and wishing everyone a good night, while the guests thank him for the meal. The island is shown at night. In his room, the founding master seems to be in pain, as a voice says that this reminds him of the old days. The dark entity asks if that boy named Taejin Lee doesn't seem quite eager to learn blood magic. The voice continues, saying he had the same look the founding master had when they first met, the will to sacrifice anything for power. The founding master yells that the boy has nothing to do with the entity, as a contract can only be made through a demonic tome. The entity then says there's one thing the Bone King doesn't know, and it reveals that Taejin Lee has already acquired the Tome of 1,000 Bloods, leaving the founding master in shock. The founding master asks what the entity said, and it replies that it feels a new host has been born for it. The entity declares it can no longer satisfy its hunger with the food he offers, as his old body is insufficient to house its power. It then announces it will borrow the Bone King's body for a while. Later, the door to Saren's room opens slowly in the middle of the night. The founding master approaches her bed as a voice accuses him of feeding her garbage when he could have offered better meals. Saren continues to sleep soundly in her bed. He reaches out his hand and tells the human not to be upset, because although it wasn't part of the plan, his hunger needed to be sated. Then, the founding master prepares to taste the girl's soul. Suddenly, he turns upon hearing someone call him master. At the door, Taejin asks what he's doing up so late. The founding master replies that he could ask him the same thing. The young man explains he couldn't sleep because he felt bad about what he did and came to apologize. Taejin bows and reveals that the gift he chose earlier wasn't what he really wanted. He then shows the demonic tome he took. The young man apologizes for taking it without permission, but states that he has his reasons for needing to learn blood magic, and he adds that he would sacrifice anything to learn it. The founding master covers one of his eyes and asks if he's sure. He warns him there could be unimaginable consequences if he chooses to delve into blood magic. Taejin replies that it's okay, as he's prepared for anything. With a smile, the founding master simply agrees. He then says to begin, and the young man asks what he means by that. A dark entity emerges from the founding master, and a voice asks the human if he can hear it. Taejin backs away, holding the book, and asks who he is. The voice introduces itself as a great sorcerer who dominated the world and reigned over countless deaths long ago. It continues, saying it will grant him new powers by taking its place in his body, and that all he needs to do is offer small tributes. Then the entity instructs him to proceed with the contract. As the book's pages flip, and a system notice warns of unauthorized access. Suddenly, dark tendrils shoot out of the tome and grab Taejin's arm. He shouts that he heard nothing about this, and asks what the entity means by entering his body. The entity replies that it's too late for regrets, as his body is now its. As he's pulled by the tendrils, a system alert reports that the unauthorized user is synchronizing with his status window, and he screams for it to stop. Taejin resists, stating that he still has much to accomplish. The entity thanks Gyeonho Go for guiding it to this wonderful body, and it notes how the young, healthy body far surpasses the founding master's. But Taejin's body begins to move uncontrollably. The entity wonders what's happening as the movements continue. Then it questions why the body isn't obeying it. Chapter 34. The entity wonders what's happening. Then the body starts moving strangely, and it questions why he isn't obeying. Moments earlier, before dinner time, the scene returns to the basement. Taejin holds the book and Addie asks why the master would hide it like that. She says she doesn't know, but feels he shouldn't touch it. Taejin figures the master planned to never show the book to anyone, since blood magic carries a high risk. He continues, explaining that if used incorrectly, the user's life could be in danger. The young man observes the book closely, and he reads the description, which says the user must pay a price. He notes that while many items have penalties, few warn the user so clearly. Taejin then wonders how bad the price would be. He turns to Addie and asks if there are similar items in other dimensions. She explains that these kinds of ancient tomes usually attract experienced collectors. Then Addie suggests he put it up for appraisal on the parsley market. Taejin agrees, realizing he could use the parsley market. Taejin then decides to log into the parsley market. He starts typing his question into a panel. The young man asks if anyone knows the item and says he'll pay for a detailed description. Quickly, a user named Know-It-All requests a chat, and Taejin is surprised by the speed. The user asks if the item is for sale, but Taejin replies that for now, he just wants information. In the chat, Know-It-All reveals that it's a soul-bound tome. He explains it's a forbidden book that grants an ability in exchange for the user's life, and that the contract is a trap. Taejin and Addie react in shock upon learning the price to be paid is life itself. The young man then asks what that means exactly. Know-It-All clarifies that the book's sorcerer's consciousness enters the user's body as soon as the contract is made. He adds that it's possible to use the sorcerer's magic, but you have to offer life force and mana for the rest of your life. Taejin realizes the sorcerer uses the book to move between bodies and wonders how that could be possible. Then, the user says he noticed something else, and that the book is of terrible quality. Taejin asks what he means, and Know-It-All explains the book is so old it wouldn't get past the antivirus of a status window above version 2.0. The young man gets the hint and thanks him for the information. Taejin points forward and sends the payment. Then the system confirms an unauthorized access attempt, activating a firewall that makes Taejin's body contort. He points at the entity and taunts it for trying to invade the latest status window. Taejin declares that a virus has been detected as the entity is forced out, and it reacts in disbelief. A digital barrier with access denied blocks the entity, which wonders how a status window like that can exist. The entity questions if he was planning this from the start and asks who he is. A force throws him backward. Lying on the floor, Taejin looks up. The system's firewall blocks the virus's access through an unauthorized route. The entity is repelled, finding the situation impossible. Taejin gets up and comments on the persistence of that smoke. He then places his hand on the book. The book opens, and he acquires the Tome of 1,000 Bloods and the passive skill Demonic Blood. The explosive growth mission is completed, unlocking the communication horizon, and Taejin wonders what that could be. He gets the feeling the reward is useless, as the founding master, now on the floor, calls out to him. Taejin helps the founding master and asks if he's okay. He replies that he's fine and then asks how the master feels. The older man questions what just happened, stating that he saw him make a contract with the demon. And he continues, saying he saw the creature enter the young man's body with his own eyes. Then the master asks how it's possible that nothing seems to be happening to him. He questions if Taejin really defeated Azel by himself. The young man explains that all he did was refuse to listen to it. The founding master is confused by the answer. Taejin explains that he destroyed the contract at the last moment, and then the entity simply left his body. He says that while blood magic is useful, he didn't want to go as far as selling his soul. With a hand on his chest, the young man declares that true strength comes from within. Taejin adds that he doesn't know what happened to the demon. Maybe it's wandering the underworld without a body. The founding master realizes he can no longer hear the entity's voice, nor feel its dark presence. He fought for 30 years to escape the contract, but this man succeeded in the most unbelievable way. Then, the founding master kneels and thanks Hunter Taejin. The founding master explains that during the catastrophe, he sought a power he shouldn't have to protect the world, even if it meant going down the wrong path. But he says that after watching Taejin that day, he realized something. The master concludes that all the power he had gained wasn't truly his. Taejin asks him not to cry, as he can't imagine the burden he has carried for decades. He holds the older man's hand and states that even without blood magic, he is still very strong. Then the young man advises him to free himself from the burden of the past, Master Bone King. Waking up to the noise, Saren turns on the light and complains that she can't sleep in peace until she notices their presence. She sits up in bed, surprised to see Hunter Taejin and the Master Bone King in her room. The girl then covers herself and screams, asking what the two of them are doing there. Taejin tries to explain, saying it's not what it looks like. Suddenly, the entire room begins to shake violently. Saren screams, asking what's happening now, as Taejin recognizes the threat. A voice calls them all foolish mortals, as tendrils emerge from the ground. The entity claims it's impossible to make it disappear as long as its soul remains in the world, and a structure begins to crack the wall. And then it declares that if it cannot possess a body, it will be reborn on Earth through their blood and flesh. Then, an S-class mythical entity, the Tree of 1,000 Bloods, is summoned. Chapter 35. Saren wonders if that's a tree, as everyone stares at the creature. Taijin's system syncs and identifies the 1,000 Blood Tree, the most powerful creation of blood magic. The information reveals that its summoning requires at least 100 human sacrifices, or the mage themselves in extreme cases. Taijin realizes that since there's no one else to sacrifice, the blood mage must have offered himself. A large, monstrous wolf appears on the island. Then, several wolves begin to attack a barrier around the mansion. Saren asks about the strange tree and why the Silver Fangs are heading in that direction. The founding master states that they need to do something. Saren says the situation is getting dangerous and decides to wake up Hunter Jian, while Taijin prepares himself. The founding master walks toward the tree, declaring that it has already devoured countless souls, and he adds that now it seeks to take every life on the island as the wolves are absorbed into it. Calling the entity greedy, the old man summons a weapon made of bone. Gion Kang and Yeonhwa Seo come running and ask what's happening. Gion asks if a gate has opened nearby. Taijin turns to them and says he'll summarize everything quickly, as there's no time for explanations. Taijin points to the creature and reveals that the tree is the remnant of the blood mage who tormented the Bone King Master for decades. He continues, explaining that the entity tried to make him its next host, but failed, and has now returned to life. Yeonhwa Seo asks what he means by the tree tormenting the master, and he explains that all the blood magic he used in the past was the power of that thing. The founding master regrets not knowing that selling his soul to the devil would bring such catastrophic consequences. He apologizes to everyone, saying he has no right to be called a hero, but Gaeon Kang tells him not to say that. Saren prepares to use a skill. Yeonhwa tells him that even without blood magic, he is a hero who saved the country, and asks that he let her and Gion take care of the Silver Fangs. But just as Saren is about to attack, Taijin stops her. He warns her that those aren't ordinary Silver Fangs. The girl is confused by his warning. Taijin explains that they look like normal monsters, but they all have enhanced attributes. His analysis reveals they have magic absorption and stamina regeneration, so they can't be defeated with ordinary attacks. He concludes that the veins must be making them more powerful, and that the fight will only end when they defeat the tree. Taijin then turns to the others and asks what they think, and if there's a way to destroy it completely. He reflects on the problem, realizing the tree also has passive magic absorption and stamina regeneration, making it practically invincible. Adimin comments that her fireball would reduce the enemy's healing, but would be more harmful than helpful, while Gion Kang says not even his dragon fist can overcome it. Taijin concludes that the creature seems to have no discernible weaknesses, but he then affirms that yes, there is a way, as there's no monster in this world without a weakness. Taijin instructs everyone to fight the Silver Fangs to buy time, and the Bone King Master agrees. Declaring it's time to show off his skills again, the old man slams his bone weapon into the ground. He says that maybe it's because the parasite that was consuming him is finally gone. Then, a horde of skeletons emerges from the earth, and the master declares that he feels incredible. The Silver Fangs charge forward to attack. Jeon Kang prepares for battle, and he strikes one of the creatures. Saren summons the spirits of the frozen lands, and she blesses the dead with her powers, imbuing the skeleton's weapons. The young woman then tells the Bone King Master to advance, and he confirms. The skeleton army fiercely attacks the wolves, but a stamina regeneration buff activates on the Silver Fangs, and their healing begins. Saren says that at this rate, the battle will be endless and apologizes that this is the best she can do. The founding master reassures her, saying there's nothing to be done since the monsters absorb magic, but that he's happy to have her support. The girl then asks what Hunter Taijin is doing over there. The founding master explains that he's been punching and kicking the Silver Fangs for a while, but sees no progress. The old man observes the situation. He says he doesn't know what Taijin's plan is, but he needs to hurry. Taijin uses one of his techniques to dash forward, and then he delivers a powerful blow to one of the creatures. The young man grabs one of the veins, connecting a wolf to the tree. He realizes he can't rip the veins out, no matter how hard he tries. Taijin concludes that attacking the veins doesn't work, so he decides it's time to execute the final plan. The young man approaches the tree and tells Azel he's changed his mind, leaving the entity confused. He holds out his hand and asks if the creature will teach him blood magic once more. His companions watch him, not understanding the situation. Taijin declares that the power of blood magic is incredible and invincible. He then offers his entire soul and asks the entity to teach him the magic. Suddenly, tendrils pierce the young man's body, and someone calls out to him. The entity calls him a fool for thinking it would fall for the same trick twice, and binds him with tentacles. It declares that it no longer needs his body for its resurrection, and then it begins to drain Taijin's blood, who screams in pain as the system warns him about blood loss. The entity says that with him offering himself so willingly, everything becomes easier. It claims that its new body will be complete soon. The creature decides to use the others as food for its rebirth, and greets them. Suddenly, Taijin's clone appears before it, startling it. He explains that he observed the use of blood magic and had an idea. The clone reveals that he could also take possession whenever he wanted. The entity asks, confused, what he means by take possession. The clone asks if it understands what's happening, and offers to give it a taste of its own medicine. The tree begins to crack. With a smile, Taijin declares the tree is now his, and his system displays the amount of usable demonic blood he has acquired. Chapter 36. Taijin is captured by the monstrous tree in front of Saren and the Bone King. Saren screams Taijin's name as she sees him get pierced. She laments that the creature can absorb magic. Then, she charges forward, determined to save him, but the Bone King stops her, saying they don't stand a chance now that Taijin has failed. He warns her that she'll only put herself in danger. With tears in her eyes, Saren asks if they should just watch him die. She declares she'd rather die fighting by his side. The Bone King then takes the blame, saying none of this would have happened if he hadn't awakened him, and claims that Taijin would have been fine. The creature on its back opens a giant eye, and introduces itself to the skeleton army as the legendary sorcerer Azul, leaving everyone completely confused by the situation. Azul reflects on his selfish acts and decides to apologize to everyone. The Bone King wonders if he's apologizing, but one of his men warns him not to be fooled. Azul insists his apology is sincere. Then he states he no longer wants to torment people, releases Taijin, and decides to simply leave. Saying his farewells, the creature begins to walk away. Saren and the Bone King can't believe what they just witnessed. The Bone King is still processing the fact that Azul apologized, but he refuses to believe it, knowing Azul isn't the type to do such a thing. As he wonders if it's a trick, Saren tells him to look. She points out that the wolves and skeletons are returning to where they came from. The Bone King confirms they are indeed retreating. He realizes all life on the island is returning to normal, and wonders why it happened so close to Azul's resurrection. Then, he looks in the direction where Taijin fell, and wonders if all of this was part of Taijin's plan from the start. Inside the tree, Taijin feels like he's in control of everything. A system notification informs him that his mana has exceeded the previous users, transferring all rights to the tree to him. As Taijin revels in the power, Azul questions what he's doing. Azul demands that Taijin get out of his body, but he refuses. Then, Taijin grabs one of the tree's tentacles. He declares it's time to liquidate all the blood the tree has taken, while a system notification confirms the demonic blood is leaving its body. The system issues a warning of insufficient blood to maintain the millennial blood tree. The tree begins to shake and fall apart. Azul can't believe a mere human dares to take the tree for himself. He laments that he was just a little more time away from returning to life. Then, he refuses to accept what's happening as his body disintegrates. A system notification informs that the entity has been unsummoned due to lack of blood. The surrounding forest falls silent. The system then reports that the tree's blood is being supplied to Taijin, and his vital signs have returned to normal. He suddenly gets up, exclaiming that he almost died. Taijin then reflects on how dangerous blood magic is, and that he really could have died. Saren and the Bone King run toward him, happy that he's alive. She hugs him, relieved. Saren says she really thought he was going to die. Taijin reassures her, explaining that he just passed out for a moment. Then he asks her to let go, and Saren awkwardly pulls away, apologizing. She faces him and asks what exactly happened. Saren explains that the tree just changed its behavior and vanished after making the monsters go back to normal. She admits that while it's good for them, she can't understand why the creature would do that. Suddenly, Gaeon Kang appears, declaring that the reason is simple, as it was all because of him. Taijin and Saren watch him without reaction. The Bone King then approaches, saying he has many questions for Taijin. He states that what he witnessed that night seems impossible for a single hunter. He suggests that an unknown force is helping him. With a smile, he comments that it's something too complex for an old man like him to understand. But he hopes that whatever this power is, it takes him where he wants to go. Taijin thanks him and wonders if the Bone King knows something. He shakes the Bone King's hand, reflecting that sometimes it feels like he can see right through him. The Bone King tells everyone to rest, assuring them he'll take care of the remaining monsters. But Azul's spirit rises from the ashes, declaring that it's not over yet. Taijin gets annoyed at the enemy's return and wishes he would just die already. Azel then taunts the Bone King, asking if he really believed it was all over. He swears that even in death he'll drag him down to the underworld. In a summoning circle, Azel invites all mortals to join him. Taijin complains that the enemy just doesn't know when to quit. The Bone King explains that the Monosphere is his final attack, created with all his life force. He warns that if it explodes, everyone on the island could be completely wiped out. Taijin despairs, realizing he's out of mana at the worst possible moment. Then, Addie Min's voice appears, explaining she was doing some research and has already taken care of everything. Taijin asks what she means by personnel as the world around him begins to distort. He turns in surprise to see two figures appear behind him. Time around them seems to stop, and Taijin wonders if everything has frozen. 3 people watch the spell, and Jinhyuk comments that it's been maybe 150 years since he last saw that distribution site. Jinhyuk identifies the situation as that of an illegal status window user. Yeonhwa Seo agrees to finish the job quickly so they can go home. Chapter 37. Taijin wonders who those people are and if they're part of Addie's organization. Then, 2 unknown figures emerge from a portal. The tailed man comments that they look like monsters, completely different from her. The slime creature asks why he didn't isolate the area, but the man doesn't understand the question. He insists it's impossible, as he entered the exact dimensional code he was given. Then, he notices Taijin watching them and admits the creature was right. Addie explains that she forgot to mention in the report that he had the latest version of the status window. The slime creature gets agitated and asks if they're in trouble, but the man tells her to calm down. He then turns to Taijin and asks if his status window is version 2.0 or higher. He confirms that it is. The tailed man apologizes for the inconvenience and explains that their report was different. Taijin asks them to explain what's going on. The man then wonders where he should begin his explanation. He states that if the kid has version 2.0, then he should know about their organization. But Taijin replies that he only knows there's an entity that manages the status windows. The slime creature then reveals they are members of the organization's special security department. She explains that while she can't give details, their mission is to arrest the user of an illegal status window. Taijin repeats the term illegal status window as he looks at the shadowy being. The tailed man confirms that the being is wanted by the organization. He can't tell him everything, but reveals that the target tried to abuse the system's functions for personal gain. Taijin remembers Addie mentioning the organization, but he never thought he'd actually meet them. He always thought they were just her excuses to not work, but now he sees she was telling the truth. The slime creature interrupts him, but her partner scolds her for meddling. She then warns him, saying the target is starting to emerge from occlusion. The shadowy creature questions who they are, and if they were summoned by that damned one. She then curses them for following her to such barbaric lands just to torment her. Then, she decides she will consume every last drop of their life force to drag them to hell. The man states they've wasted enough time talking, and that it's time to get to work. The slime creature dashes towards the target at high speed. She then announces the arrest of Azel von Arceus under Article 5, Section 13. Azel questions how they got there so quickly as a device activates. Then, the slime creature pulls him into a containment circle. Taijin just watches, wondering what the hell is going on. He realizes she subdued that enormous mass of power without any effort. Next, the slime creature seals Azel inside a container. The tailed man bows and apologizes to Taijin once more for all the trouble they've caused. He explains that, for his cooperation, they'd like to show their appreciation. Taijin just asks him what he means by show. The man then informs him that he will pass out in a moment. He says goodbye as he enters a portal, and Taijin tries to stop him, demanding an explanation, but they disappear before the young man can reach them. An older man yells for Taijin and Gaon to get Saren inside. Then, everything around them simply vanishes, leaving only the night sky. A young woman asks what happened, saying something was just there a moment ago. Taijin then falls unconscious to the ground. Someone asks if Taijin is okay. A new day dawns at a large mansion. Addie introduces herself as Taijin's alarm clock for the day. Still sleepy, he asks what she's doing as Addie tells him it's time to wake up. Now sitting up in bed, Taijin asks why he passed out so suddenly, since he still had mana. She explains that even for a version 2.0 user, it's not easy to move within an isolated dimension. Addie believes his stamina was completely drained, and he complains that they should have warned him. She then suggests he check his status window, as it will completely change his opinion of them. A reward notification then appears on his screen, informing him of a deposit for the criminal's capture. He's surprised to see he received 10,000 coins. Taijin is shocked by the enormous amount of coins he received, but Addie comments that for a third-degree criminal, it's actually not that much. He finally understands what the man meant when he said he wanted to thank him. Then, Taijin tells Addy he's realized he no longer wants to be a hunter. From that day on, his new career goal is to become a bounty hunter. Addy just asks if he's kidding. She then claims it was all thanks to her report and that he should be thanking her. Taijin asks why she can't appear physically, and Addy replies that it requires her supervisor's permission. He calls her his lucky charm and hugs the pillow, but she quickly backs away. Taijin then remembers that Azul was a third-degree criminal. He deduces there must be first- and second-degree criminals, and Addy confirms there are. She explains there are very few first-degree criminals and not many second-degree ones, but that doesn't mean third-degree criminals are weak. Taijin asks how someone becomes a first-degree criminal, and she begins to explain that it depends on the person's abilities. She then stops talking abruptly. Addy apologizes, saying she can't say anymore because the rest is confidential. Taijin then states that if Addy is right, he can't just ignore the situation. He remembers that if that man was once a hunter, he was probably one of the strongest, and yet, he was only a third-degree criminal. He then wonders how strong the people in the organization who capture these criminals must be. Addy tells Taijin there's really no need to overthink it. She then explains that they are just a regular company that distributes and manages status windows, nothing more. Chapter 38. Upon arriving at the beach, Captain Young-soo Kim faces the destruction and wonders what happened over the last 3 days. He wonders if a natural disaster hit the area because the situation is unbelievable. Then, Saren emerges from the forest with her companions and greets the captain, who recognizes her. Young-soo helps her board the ship and invites the others to come aboard as well. He then asks if they're all ready to leave, but a voice asks him to wait. The captain turns to see who interrupted him. The Bone King steps aboard, and Young-soo asks him why he's there. The founding master just asks what's wrong with him boarding, and the captain comments that it's strange to see him on the ship. Young-soo explains that he can't be late because it's his wife's birthday, but the man tells him not to worry. He claims he just has some business to take care of across the sea, and the boat departs. At the destination port, Yeonhwa Seo awaits their arrival. The moment she sees them, Saren runs toward Yeonhwa, calling her name. She hugs her tightly, saying she missed her so much, and Yeonhwa welcomes her back. Saren begins to cry and says she wouldn't believe what happened if she told her, but she quickly explains that she can't share the details because it's confidential, as Yeonhwa comforts her. Yeonhwa tells Saren that she won't question her about why her mana is depleted, or about the traces of undead on her. Surprised, the young woman simply asks how she knew. The Bone King approaches and thanks Yeonhwa for coming. He asks if she came alone, and Yeonhwa confirms she only brought a driver to take them. The founding master expresses his relief, as he didn't want to be bothered by the media. She then explains that's why she didn't tell anyone about his arrival. He thanks her for preparing everything, but she states it was an honor. Then, he whispers in her ear that he is still looking for a way to grant her request. Yeonhwa simply thanks him. She says goodbye to Taijin, telling him they are returning to the guild, and he tells her to take care. Saren then turns and gets Taijin's attention. She apologizes for calling him Appa without permission, and confesses she's wanted to get closer to him since the exam. Taijin replies that he feels they've grown closer, just as he did with Gion and the Bone King. So Saren asks if he would mind if she kept calling him that. He answers that it's no problem at all and she can call him whatever she wants. With a smile, Saren whispers that she liked his answer. She then says goodbye from inside the car, and Gion Kang shouts for them to take him with them. Gion turns to Taijun and says he'll remember the martial arts skills he demonstrated. He then points at the young man and promises that the next time they meet, he will surpass him. Jaeon says goodbye like a brother in arms and runs after the car, while Taijun just tells him to worry about his own ride. The Bone King states that they should also get going, as Miss Seo has already prepared everything. He then turns to Taijun and asks if he is prepared. The founding master adds, asking if the young man is ready to be the center of everyone's attention. Taijin replies that he certainly is, as he is always prepared for anything. Moments later, they arrive at a conference room filled with journalists. A banner in the room announces the event as the press conference for the return of the Bone King, Gyeonho Go. The Bone King then takes the stage as photographers ready their cameras. One of the photographers is surprised to notice someone else is with him. The reporters recognize Taijin and wonder why he is accompanying the Bone King. Two journalists from the Hunter Times comment that he looks like an ordinary person, very different from what they were told. The Bone King asks them to lower their cameras for now, stating that he will answer questions later. He announces that, as informed by Yeonhwa, he is coming out of retirement, but not to return to his duties as a hunter. His purpose is to pass on his knowledge of blood magic, one of the nation's unique techniques. And then, he reveals that the person who will inherit his skills is the hunter Taijin Lee. Reporters begin to comment that it now makes sense why he joined the Radiant Specters. A journalist notes that a prodigy like Taijin was exactly the kind of person that Picky Old Man wanted, but a reporter named Sujin Hong finds all of this predictable so far. Only players approved by the International Hunters headquarters are permitted to use blood magic, and the Bone King is the only one in Korea with this right. Therefore, to use it legally, his support is indispensable, but the Bone King states that there is one more thing he needs to announce. He then nominates Hunter Taejin Lee as a candidate for the special A-class exam. Sujin Hong is surprised by the mention of a special exam for A-class. The founding master then concludes his announcement. The reporters immediately start shouting questions at the two of them. Then, Sujin Hong from the Hunter Times raises her hand to ask a question. Sujin Hong asks to pose a question to Master Bone King about Taejin's promotion to A-class. The Bone King gives her the floor. She begins by explaining that for a hunter to take the promotion exam, it's public knowledge that certain conditions must be met. So, Sujin questions him if there's any specific reason to recommend Mr. Lee for the special exam. She continues her questioning, implying that he will probably fail. If he does fail, he won't be able to be promoted to A-class for the next 5 years. Furthermore, the person who nominated him receives a heavy fine and other penalties. The guild's reputation would be ruined, and they would become a laughingstock for the entire hunter community. But the Bone King states he has no such worries, as Hunter Taejin is good enough to pass with flying colors. Sujin thanks him for the answer, and says she has just one more question. She then addresses Hunter Lee directly. Taejin allows her to proceed with her question. The reporter notes that while everyone gathered for the return of the Bone King, all eyes are now focused on him. She continues, saying that everyone is curious about how incredible he must be to be personally nominated for the special A-class exam. Then, Sujin asks him to introduce himself to everyone present. Daigi Kim praises Sujin, saying that, as always, she asked impressive questions. The other reporters comment that she's not asking for an introduction, but questioning what makes him special enough to take the exam. One of the journalists claims that no matter how clever he is, he won't be able to escape this question. Taijin then lets out a shout into the microphone, surprising everyone in the room.